How to get it to them is a whole nother issue. But okay, so we're going to start out, and again, we have a number of texts that we'll be going through, and we'll go ahead and jump into that. But we're looking at how do you know that you are hearing, or how do you know when you hear the voice of God? How do you know it? All right, so this should be appearing on your screen. Tell me if you see the screen share. Can
I,
everybody see that?
I see it.
Okay.
Yep.
So just for disclaimer's sake, this study is in English. I will use some what is called Hebrew words because the Bible was originally written in Hebrew or Aramaic language. So you'll hear some references to that. If you have questions, this is a Bible study. Ask the question, right? So I'll go through so much of the content and then I'll pause to see if you have questions, and then we'll also take some questions at the end. So what we're looking at is how do you know the voice of God or the voice of Yah? Yah, God is, it's in some sense semantics. When we start to look at the Bible study, at some point we're going to go through the book of Genesis. And then at some point we're going to start studying some of the sounds or names that people use because people put a lot of emphasis on like this name or that name. And it's important to know what these sounds, words, and names mean and how they are conveyed in the text, but we won't get into that this evening. All right. So the very first thing that we will look at, if this does right, hold on one moment. Something went wrong. What's that? Yeah. Oh, that's what went wrong. Okay, so the very first thing that we are going to do is we are going to start to examine uh, the particular topic that we're dealing with. Again, how do you know that you are hearing, or how do you know when you hear the voice of God? And this is important for hundreds of reasons, but the most important reason uh, is that you can clearly delineate the instructions from the entity. And when I say entity, whatever the being is, and like I'm saying God, but whatever that being is, like I never met the being, right? I mean, I've interacted, et cetera, et cetera. But whatever the being is, and when I say that, I mean, he said heaven and he can feel heaven and earth is his footstool. So, like that, whatever that concept is that a higher consciousness is, it communicates with the people that it created. And that should not be above our imagination, right? Like we communicate with the people we created, if you're a parent or something, right? So our opening psalm, if somebody would take the liberty of reading, our opening psalm is going to be Psalms chapter 29 and verse 3. So if somebody could take the liberty of reading, we can pass around the reading, or if one person wants to read. Our opening psalm is going to be Psalms 29 and verse 3. Psalms 29 and verse 3. And we're going to read verse 3 through 9 when you get it. Psalms 29, verse 3 through 9.
I'll start.
Yes, sir.
Given to the Most High, O ye mighty, given to the Most High glory and strength. Given to the Lord the glory due his name, worship the Most High in the beauty of his holiness. Oh, sorry, I started at 1. The voice of the Most High is upon the waters. The God of glory thundereth. The Most High is upon the waters. The voice of the Most High is powerful. The voice of the Most High is full of majesty. The voice of the Most High breaketh the cedars. Yea, the Most High breaketh the cedars of Lebanon. He maketh them also to skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian like a young unicorn. The voice of the Most High divideth the flames of fire. The voice of the Most High shaketh the wilderness. The Most High shaketh the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Most High maketh the hinds to calve, and discovereth the forests, and in his temple doth everyone speak of his glory.
So notice a few things about that Psalms that we won't get into too much detail is that the language is expressing that the creator does have a voice, and it does things like break a tree in half, right? A cedar of Lebanon is a tree that may be in diameter, you know, 30 feet thick or 50 feet thick. And his voice will snap it in half like a twig, right? So it's talking about it's like the sound of many rushing waters. I mean, the text goes on to talk a lot about his voice. So when we think about that, there's a lot of ways that we should understand that, and we'll get into some of that now. So we started off with a little bit of grounding. We just read the opening Psalms. We'll review the objectives. Like, what are you here for today? Like, what are you expecting to get out of this? Or more in tandem with that, what am I attempting to convey through that? We'll look at a couple of framing questions, and then we'll go into the lecture. Wrong title there, but you get the gist. And then we will close out. So ultimately, we should be out of here in about 90 minutes. The core three things that in terms of our objectives, we want to get a clear understanding of the biblical foundations of hearing God's voice. Now, again, there are a lot of people, whether they, prognosticators or, you get this things, people on the internet, used to be a lady named Miss Cleo, and people claim themselves prophesying, and people who are into seances. Everybody talking about they heard something and they connected. But you can see clearly, and we can get into a little bit of it now, who he deals with and does not deal with. So, for example, the God of the Bible doesn't deal with tarot cards or palm readings, or that's not biblical, right? People who do that, they are tapped into some voice. I'm just not telling you is anything biblical. So we want to get a clear foundation on that. Then get and develop practical skills on to discern God's voice from other influences. So again, there's a lot of influences, right? And you can watch, some videos online to get you all doped up to be rich and famous, and you think, see, God want me to be prosperous because the internet told you that. See, that's not the voice. Now, not that he don't want you to do well, but that's not the voice of God. But people follow it as if it is. Like, God just want me to be prosperous. He want me to be rich. Well, I don't necessarily conclude that that's what his desire is for you in particular, because there's a lot of snares and trouble that comes with having a lot of resources. And one of the last objectives is to learn how to apply the guidance that you receive in your everyday decisions and when you have challenges. So when you're stuck in a real bad crisis, and let's say, some people married, and it's like, today I believe I should leave on my own and we should get divorced, and this sign happened. And it's like, come on, man. Did God tell you to leave your wife? Did he tell you to leave your husband? And how do you know he didn't tell you that? Because I'm going to point you right back to the text where it says, what he put together, let nobody put asunder. Now, you could believe what you want to believe, because you got a lot of divorce counselors telling you, well, I don't see, God just wants you to be happy. Well, I don't necessarily read in the Bible where marriage was going to make you happy all the time. So that is a construct of somebody telling you something that is not biblical. So you need to learn how to apply the real voice of the creator in those everyday challenges, okay? So there's a couple framing questions. I'm gonna split y'all into groups. We're gonna have about 4 minutes, just so I'm not doing all the talking. Y'all know I like to break it up a little bit. And our framing question that we're gonna look at is, why is it so important to clearly know when you hear God's voice or Yah's voice, right? Why is it important to clearly know when you hear his voice? So we're going to split, if this works out, into a couple of groups. You'll have about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we will join back together. So I won't be doing all the talking, but I'm going to, if you are on a device where you can join the group, I'm opening up the groups. You have about 3 or 4 minutes, and it should allow you to select the group. Does a breakout pop up for y'all or no?
I haven't
Did not
seen
see
it
one of
yet.
mine.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Well, let me try that again. I don't know what just happened, but let me do that one more time. Breakouts. Recreate. Oh, bam. Here it is. All right. You got about 3 minutes and it should prompt you to join now. If it doesn't, let me know.
So Moshe, we're answering the question on the screen right now, or we're answering the one
Yes, sir.
about why it's important?
Yes, sir.
Because it's two different questions. The one on the screen says name name ways we can understand we heard his voice.
Oh, well, you can do that one on the screen. Sorry. Either
Okay.
one, either one. I forgot I flipped the screen before we got the prompt going.
Okay.
Joining it wrong. Stop the screen share. Oh, y'all gonna talk? Oh man.
So I guess one of the well, it's the importance of hearing the voice of God. That was the question, right, Moses?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess for me, kind of knowing the importance of like hearing the voice of God is like, kind of leading me in the right direction as far as like decision making, or just
I saw someone that had a she has like this page, man, and she's I guess she's a Christian, right? And she's like she's doing prophecy, she's prophesying. And so I saw this just this post she made, like where she prophesied that there will be a famine in the US or something at the end of the year. And so I'm like, okay, these are the type of things that you need to know.
So I think it's inevitable. I mean, I think it's desirable for us to hear the clear voice of Yah, so that we're not in that gray area. Because it talks about obedience is better than sacrifice. It's about what are you being obedient to. Some things that I have tried to pursue in prayer, and then they didn't work out, and I was like, okay, did I miss it? Wasn't that for me? Is it not yet? So I think it's good to hear the voice of Yah, so you can know clearly how you are supposed to be traversing through your duration on earth. So I think it gives you your destination, and each thing that we experience is supposed to be drawing us closer to Him. So whether it be in adversity or prosperity, we're supposed to be in a closer, deeper relationship with Him. So I think in order to do that, we have to have efficient communication with Him. Meaning, like, in order for a relationship to be healthy, it has to have.
uh,
No, Brother Moses just popped back on. That's all.
so you just checking in the room.
I'm just jumping between groups. Is this stranger right here, Tamar Clark? Is he on the call or what is he doing?
Not sure.
Let me call him and fuss at him. What's going on? Did you answer, Imani?
Yes, Brother Corey was responding to.
Oh, okay, I'll be quiet.
No, I was just saying, like getting to know God and also like sharing, like, the things that, like what she said, like sharing him with others is something like I don't think about as much. And, it's also like important to kind of share them in that way and understand them a little bit better too.
Is our time up? Oh, okay. Well, I think
That
I
was
mean, we
good.
pretty,
That was yeah. That was I don't know how much time passed, but it was good.
okay. Looks like we leaving the breakout room.
Cool. So what did, well, I mean, it was brief, but let me hear a couple thoughts. What did y'all chop it up about?
Well, I know in group one we kind of talked about the same thing, just about one of the reasons why it's important to hear, the word of God is one is decision making, sound decision making, because that applies to our life on a practical level, day to day. And without that, we can just be tossed around. Because right now there's a lot of could be false prophets, just false prophecies, people out there speaking things that are not true, but making them seem as they're true. And I think in this day and age, we got to be able to discern if it's the truth or if it's not. So that's one of the major things that we saw is knowing the truth, basically, and knowing God's word for decision making purposes, especially in the perilous times that we're in right now.
Cool. Anybody else?
Yeah, Amani and I's group two, we kind of like touched on the same thing. And she can speak to what she said, but she said something kind of important about like sharing God's love and his message and that voice to others to like understand and draw closer to his voice. But yeah, we kind of talked about the same thing in terms of like making the right decisions, being in tune and listening to when you do think you hear the voice of God. So.
Cool, cool. One more person?
I mean, I'll add one more thing. Damon had added something to our group when he was talking about one of the things that had came to mind was when Jesus was being tempted by Satan. Satan was using scripture, and even the fallen angels, or whatever you want to call them, fallen angels, Nephilim, or demons, they know the word. So sometimes we could think it's God, but it's really, really demonic. So we really have to understand what really is his voice.
Yeah, no, that is an excellent point. That's a very, very excellent point, right? So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So what we will do is we're going to jump into these texts here. And again, we can either rotate reading or if a person doesn't mind reading, but clearly hearing the voice, right? So we're going to start off in Matthew chapter 12. We will start in Matthew chapter 12, and then we'll start reading at verse 9. And if I can get a volunteer to pick it up there, Matthew 12 and verse 9. So there are some words that are recorded that we want to go on record to hear in our hearing. And then when we hear those words, we want to interpret those and try to think about them in ways that are best fitting, right? So Matthew chapter 12 and verse 9.
I can read.
Yes, sir.
All right, Matthew chapter 12 and verse 9. I'm reading out the TX 2009
Okay.
for everyone that's on. So verse 9 says, and having left there, he went to their congregation, and see, there was a man having a withered hand. And they asked him, saying, is it right to heal on the Sabbath? So as to accuse him. And he said to them, what man is there among you who has one sheep, and if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, shall not take hold of it and lift it out? How much more is a man worth than a sheep? So it is right to do good on the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Then he said to the man, stretch out your hand. And he stretched it out, and it was restored, as healthy as the other. But the Pharisee went out and took counsel against him so as to destroy him. But Yahushua, knowing it, withdrew from there. A large crowd followed him, and he healed them all and warned them not to make him known.
Right. So here we have a case where there are two different voices that are speaking. This is definitely not the text I was looking for, but two different voices speaking. I think it was the actual text should be saying, "My sheep hear my voice," and I don't know why that text is not the one that we just went to. So yeah, it's two different voices here that was making a proclamation, and he made mention that, look, in this case, what would you should have done, right? Healing on the Sabbath. But let me find that actual text that I was looking for, because that wasn't it. Let's go to John chapter 10, verse 27. I don't know why this text popped in there. There was something I was going to in here, but yeah, John chapter 10, verse 27. We'll skip that first one because it's not the exact text I was looking for. But John 10, and if you could pick it up at verse 27.
Yep. So John 10:27, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them everlasting life, and they shall by no means ever perish, and no one shall snatch them out of my hand.
So here is making a proclamation that I want you to think about this, right? Whoever Jesus or Yeshua of Nazareth was, like whoever he was, right? At the end of his ministry, meaning when he was crucified, it was 12 people his age following him. And there was another about 70 of them that was following him when you open up the book of Acts. So basically, a 30-year-old and 12 people he knew created what we know about today, right? Now think about this. Whatever his claim was that he came from and he connected with and he did all these miracles, I mean, he was healing people, he was doing whatever all of that was, right? The reality is it was 82 people following him. And one of them sold him out, and he got crucified before the Romans and charged with crimes of the state and all the rest of this stuff. So think about, he healed people of blindness, as recorded. And when that happened, not 10 million people were following him. We're talking about 12, and when you open the book of Acts, it said it was 70. But he's saying, look, the people who hear me know my voice. And it wasn't everybody. Some people was like, I don't understand how this man could do such and such. Sometimes he told people, look, you only hear because I feed you. And then they left. But he's making the statement, my sheep hear my voice. Now, those who farm will tell you quickly, and I've been to other people farm, you call their sheep, they are not moving. When they call their sheep, the sheep all rush to the person who is their master. So that pull or that call, when people are like, well, I don't know if I believe in God. What I mean, you just not one of his sheep. It's just simple as that. Like if you don't respond to the voice, if your mind is not prone to ask more questions about how can I get in touch with the divine? How can I find out more? How can I connect with his truth? You just don't hear his voice. So you may hear the voice of like whatever the world tell you to do, like go win a lottery or go be a megastar or go, womanize or go whatever, go have a decorated career and everybody know you and you think whatever. That stuff is not the voice of the Son, right? So let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 15 and verse 1. 2 Chronicles 15 and verse 1.
I got it.
There are some statements made in the text that I think we should pay real close attention to. 2 Chronicles chapter 15 and verse 1. And I want us to pay very close attention to what the text is saying and what it means by what it's saying. So
Okay.
2 Chronicles, we're in chapter 15, and we are going to look at verse 1. 2 Chronicles chapter 15, and we're going to look at verse 1.
All right. I'm reading out of the New King James Version.
Yes,
Verse
sir.
1. Now the Spirit of God came upon Azariah, the son of Oded, And he went out to meet Asa and said unto him,
Now, this is one of the prophets, Asa. It's Asa, right?
mm-hmm.
And he said unto him, now listen, this spirit, or when you hear the word spirit, it's nothing spooky. It don't make you like fall over and backflip. It is one of the things it is the mind of the creator, right? Like one of the things it is. So I'm not limiting to that, but for this, the purpose of this discourse is a mind that is not Asa's mind came on this person, Azariah, the son of Obed, and he went out to meet Asa. And what did he say unto him?
Hear me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you while you are with him.
How
It
long is he with you? Because people always say, oh, well, God will never leave you or forsake you. How long is he with you?
says, if you seek him, he will be found by you.
But
But
how
if
long is he with you?
he's
As
with you,
long as you with him.
As long as you with him. So if my sheep hear my voice, now notice the shepherd is calling, the sheep come, and the sheep hear the voice, so they're with the shepherd. But what if they dart off and go like, oh, the shepherd ain't called me, and the fox comes, they're gonna be eaten up. But he said, he with you as long as you with him. But what else did it say?
says, the Lord is with you while you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you.
So
But
if
if
you look for him, he's available. Oh, well, you can't find out what religion is. I don't know what's right. That's a lie from the pit of hell. The text says right here, now you can take it or leave it. The text says right here, through the spirit or the disposition or the mindset of the creator himself, who came to a prophet and say to this king, oh, he with you when you with him. And if you look for him, he gonna make himself available to you. But what else did it say?
but if you forsake him, he will forsake you.
It's that simple and plain. If you don't roll with him, he not gonna roll with you. It's just it's so fair. It's just so fair. It's almost like it's even Steven. Even Steven. Like, all right, you don't care about him. He not going out his way to care about you. That's what the text say. Now we could take that or leave it. We can argue with it. We can feel a way about it. But when I first read this, I'm like, sheesh, that's pretty clear. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 13. And we'll be jumping through the Old and New Testament, right? So 1 Kings chapter 13. Because one of the things that we're looking at is clearly hearing the voice. Now we'll notice in this example that somebody thought they heard the voice, but they didn't clearly hear the voice of the Creator, right?
I got it.
1 Kings chapter 13, and we'll pick it up at verse 11.
All right. Now an old prophet dwelt in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel. They also told their fathers the words which he had spoken to the king. And their father said to them, which way did he go? For his sons had seen which way the man of God went who came from Judah. Then he said to his sons, saddle the donkey for me. So they saddled the donkey for him, and he rode on it, and went after the man of God, and found him sitting under an oak. Then he said to him, are you the man of God who came from Judah? And he said, I am. Then he said to him, come home with me and eat bread. And he said, I cannot return with you, nor go in with you. Neither can I eat bread nor drink water with you in this place.
Now, when you read the entire story, God had a conversation with this prophet, and he said, listen, go into the city, say these words to these people, go leave the city, don't stop at nobody's house, don't go get no food, don't go back in the city. Go in, say what I told you to say, and roll out. Don't stop and don't have no meals, don't make no friends. Go do this and leave. And this is what we're reading, right? Now you can go read the whole text. That's not our point. So we won't read the whole thing, but keep going if you would.
All right, verse 17. For I have been told by the word of the Lord, you shall not eat bread nor drink water there, nor return by going the way you came. He said to him, I too am a prophet as you are. And an angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord, saying, bring him back with you to your house, that he may eat bread and drink water. He was lying to him. That was in quotes or in parentheses. So he went back with him and ate bread in his house and drank water. Now it happened as they sat at the table that the word of the Lord came to the prophet who had brought him back. And he cried out to the man of God who came from Judah, saying, Thus says the Lord, because you have disobeyed the word of the Lord and have not kept the commandment which the Lord your God commanded you, but you came back, ate bread, and drank water in the place of which the Lord said to you, Eat no bread and drink no water, your corpse shall not come to the tomb of your fathers. So it was after he had eaten bread and after he had drunk what he saddled the donkey for him, the prophet whom he had brought back. When he was gone, a lion met him on the road and killed him, and his corpse was thrown on the road, and the donkey stood by it. The lion also stood by the corpse.
So notice what we're reading. Again, this is par for the course. A man was given some instruction by the Creator. He said, look, go in this town, tell him this message, and when you done, leave out and don't make no friends, don't stop and get a meal. He did what he was told to do. When he got out of the city, another person said, well, hey, I'm a prophet too. And the same God that told you to come in the city told me to bring you back and have a meal with me. Now, what made that man listen to that? What prompted him? Oh, because they used the word God? Because he used the word prophet? See, sometimes words trick people up, and it's like, well, hey, man, you use the word Jesus too, or you use the word God too, or you use the word Bible too, or you said Yeshua too. Oh, so now we the same? But what happened to him? He got clear instructions. Don't go in that city and do something I told you not to. And what happened? He came back and the word came to him and said, look, you're going to be killed when you leave this city because I told you not to come back. But we just read in Chronicles, it says that the Creator is with you as long as you're with him. But if you forsake him, he's going to forsake you. Why didn't the man double check? Well, hey, man, I need a sign coming out the sky to say, come back to your house, because I was clear what I heard. But you see how the mind is so easily deceived? You know, our minds are just really fragile, right? Our minds are so fragile, we will believe anything. I mean, they got magic shows that'll make you believe that a bear or a tiger or a lion disappeared in a cage in front of your very eyes. And you're like, how did it happen? Our minds just work like that, right? So I put this in the link, and this is a Bible history book called Josephus, and I want to pull this up, the book of Josephus. I want to pull this up, and I put the link there so we can take a peek at it and read it. So if we could, this is a book called Josephus, and it's more or less a history book, right? And it comments on a lot of the Old Testament and what it means by that. So if somebody could, if you're able to click that link, and I want you to read what's starting at 1 here, right? So this is a book called The Complete Works of Josephus. It is pretty much a book that is a history book on somebody who lived during the time of the New Testament, and he wrote a lot about what they understood was commonly understood in the Old Testament, and he explained some of that. So you just kind of take it as a thesis on some of the details that aren't pronounced in that chapter we just read. So can somebody read that for me? Are you able to read that, Jordan?
Yes, I can read it.
Okay.
Now there was a certain wicked man in that city who was a false prophet, whom Jeroboam had in great esteem, but was deceived by him, his flattering words. This man was, I think it's bedrid, by reason of the infirmities of old age. However, he was informed by his sons concerning the prophet that was come from Jerusalem, and concerning the signs done by him, and how, when Jeroboam's right hand had been enfeebled at the prophet's prayer, he had it revived again. Whereupon he was afraid that this stranger and prophet should be in better esteem with the king than himself.
So essentially this is saying, and I'm just going to give you the truncated version, is that the prophet that went into the town that was told not to go to, he was starting to get more recognition than this particular prophet that told him to come back in town. Now, this is supposed to be like an oral history. Take it or leave it. I'm just kind of making a point here. Because one would say, well, why would God set that man up to be killed? He wants you to clearly hear his voice. That's why we're pointing this out. So somebody else is getting more credit than him. So the man that told him come back into town was like, no, I don't want nobody to get more credit than me as a known prophet. So let me find a way to discredit this man. And this is what we're reading in terms of the oral history. So keep reading if you would.
Yep. And obtained greater honor from him. And he gave orders to his sons to saddle his ass presently, and make all ready that he might go out. Accordingly, they made haste to do what they were commanded, and he got upon the ass and followed after the prophet. And when he had overtaken him, he was resting himself under a very large oak tree that was thick and shady. He at first saluted him, but presently he complained of him, because he had not come into his house and partaken of his hospitality. And when the other said that God had forbidden him to taste of anyone's provision in that city, he replied that for certain God had not forbidden that I should set food before thee. For I am a prophet as thou art, and worship God in the same manner that thou dost. And I am now come as sent by him, in order to bring thee into my house, and make thee my guest. Now Jadon gave credit to this lying prophet, and returned back with him. But when they were at dinner and married together, God appeared to Jadon, and said that he should suffer punishment for transgressing his commands. And he told him what that punishment should be, for he said that he should meet with a lion as he was going on his way, by which lion he should be torn in pieces, and be deprived of burial in the sepulchres of his fathers. Which things came to pass, as I suppose, according to the will of God, that so Jeroboam might not give heed to the words of Jadon, as of one that had been convicted of lying.
So here, again, this is oral history, but what are we reading here? The man who was told to go in the city and not come back was told by somebody who was lying to him because he wanted more credit and be in good graces and not be replaced. So his motive of telling the man to come back in the city was not pure. And so the man came back in the city thinking that he's listening to the voice of God. And what happened? He was killed. What can we learn from that story? Like, why is that being pointed out here? Because it's really important to distinguish when you're hearing clearly the voice of the Creator. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 11. 2 Corinthians, and that's a history book. It is a very, very popular history book. If you really dive deep into Bible studies, called the Book of Josephus, the complete works of Josephus. It's a very thick book, excellent resource for Bible studies. And sometimes it's bringing out some oral history or something that you may not read the why behind. So we're looking at 2 Corinthians. We're in chapter 11, and we're going to read verse 14. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 14 when you get it.
All right, I got it. And it says at verse 14, and no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light.
So if you read earlier, it says, for such are false prophets. He's talking about, he got to telling, people that there are false prophets also, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into apostles of the Christ or the Messiah. So do you have people who use the same words, right? And you read in this other text, and I'm going to say it in English, many shall come in my name saying, I am Christ. This is what Yeshua or Jesus of Nazareth said. And the way people read it is many people are going to come in my name saying they are Christ. That's not what he said. Many people are going to come in my name, whatever his name is, whether it's Jesus or Yeshua or whatever his mother named him. I'm not getting into it at this point, but they're going to use that name and say, oh no, that's the one. He died for our sins. And by his name deceive many. This is what the Bible talks about. So one of the reasons it's important to clearly hear his voice is because there's many deceivers going into the world. I mean, the Bible is still literally the most popular book bought on the face of the planet. We're talking about 8 billion people. But not everybody reads it and approaches it with integrity. And the beauty of the Bible is this, is that it is a mirror. Whatever you present or whatever is inside you, when you read it, it begins to mirror back to you. And what do I mean by that? If you walk in it with doubt, it's going to show you more things to doubt. If you walk in and say, I just want to learn, it's going to teach you as much as it can. So many false prophets are going into the world. let's look at another method of communication. So we talked about one of the few reasons why it's important. And as he draw close to you, you draw close to him, et cetera. You draw close to him, et cetera. We're going to look at one of his methods of communications. And that particular method that we're going to start out with is dreams. Now, again, I'm going to approach this with caution. I was just on a prayer call with some men this morning. And just like I think Jalen said earlier, you know, I was on another meeting and somebody talked about this woman named Cleta or something, and she prophesying that LeBron James is going to stop a pedophile ring and he's a homosexual and America going. Look, I don't get into stuff like that with human beings. I just sit and watch them, and over a course of time, whether it's a year or 4 years or 8 years, they end up getting into some foolishness, whether they are esteemed pastor, esteemed bishop, and it's sometimes always connected to some dream they had and something that they were told. So I want to just be clear on what the text says, and I want to be able to read it, and I don't want to be pulled away into some falsehood, because people have you, you know, paying them for their luxury vehicles and all that type of stuff because of where their mind is, right? So one of the methods of communication we'll look at, Job chapter 33. Job chapter 33. And you'll see this all throughout the Bible, one of the methods of communication. So when we're asking the question, man, how do I know that I'm hearing the God of creation's voice? Well, I'm going to show you one method in which he communicates. Now, when you see the method, I'm not going to tell you every time this method is employed, because right now we're looking at dreams. And I'm not going to tell you every time you have a dream is connected to some message from the God of heaven, right? I'm not going to do that to you. But what I will tell you is that is one of the clear methods that he uses to communicate. So Job chapter 33, and when you get it, we will pick it up at verse 14.
I got it. Job 33 and 14.
Yes, sir.
For El does not speak, for El does speak once or twice, though one does not notice it.
All right, so we're saying here is making clear, El is another word for God, right? Or mighty power, that's what the word more or less means. The mighty power or the mighty God speaks once or twice, and what happens? Man doesn't even notice. He don't pay attention. So he's talking to you, and like, why aren't these people listening to me? Now, you just said my sheep hear my voice, but like, what if he's talking to you and it's like, oh man, this knucklehead's so busy playing video games and going grocery shopping and trying to worry about his career and what new clothes to wear and the bills that's due, and he's not listening, or she's not listening. Now he's speaking, but you're not listening, right? Now, what else does it say?
In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men while slumbering on a bed, then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction.
So when is he able to talk to you? When you powerless. When you sleep, he will invade your very dreams and begin to communicate to you while you sleep, and you in a deep sleep. You in what they call, the scientists call REM sleep. You know, the part where you drooling, you doing this, and all of a sudden you fighting in your sleep. That's when he start talking to you. And why is he talking to you like that? Verse 16.
Then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction.
So he can open your ears and seal your instruction. What does it mean to seal your instruction? I'm going to put a stamp on what I'm asking you to do. I want you to pay attention to me now. Now, I couldn't get you while you woke, because sometimes when people woke, they even having dreams of what they can do and who they can be. Like, man, follow your dreams. See, he wants you to follow him. So while I got you asleep, and I'm gonna seal up my instruction and give to you so you can know what to do, I'm gonna address you while you sleep. All right. Verse 17.
To turn man from his deed and conceal pride from man.
Or it says also that he may withdraw man from his purpose. Like everybody got their, well, my calling is to do this. Well, no, your calling is to follow the one who made the kidneys in your body that separate blood from urine. That divine instrument called a kidney. See, he made that and put that inside you, and he can stop it just like that at any time. He can just stop it, and now you're gonna do what? Oh, help me. Everybody pray for me. People that don't even be praying are asking for prayer. Why? Because you can stop your breathing or stop your chest pains or stop just like that. right? And this is how he gonna seal up your instruction. Because look, I'm not God, and y'all know that, right? I'm not, and no, I'm just me, right? But if I was him, and I did all this talking to people, and I wrote all these books and all these prophets and all this stuff thousands of years ago, and people didn't pay attention to me. Yeah, y'all know how it is with, y'all keep talking to somebody and they're not listening, and you start raising your voice. Y'all know how it is. The creator not no different. He started to get frustrated too. If you start blowing, wind and storms, and now all of a sudden everybody want to pray and come together and see, he want to seal instruction and guide man, and he want to pull man back from pride. Verse 18.
He keeps back his being from the pit and his life from passing away by the sword. And he is reproved with no pain on his bed and with unceasing distress in his bones.
Keep going.
Okay. So that his life loathes bread and his being desirable food. His flesh wastes away, and his bones which are not seen stick out. And his being draws near the pit, and his life to the destroyers. If there is a messenger for him, a mediator, one among 1,000, to show his straightness, to show man his straightness, then he shows favor to him and says, release him from going down to the pit. I have found an atonement.
Right. So now, if the man starts being in distress in his bones and his pain, and now he want to find, what do I need to do? He gonna seek instruction. But what is my point here? That he speaketh in a dream, in a vision of a night. This is one of the modes that he communicates. Now, we'll pop over to Genesis chapter 20, right? Genesis chapter 20. Now, there are plenty of references for this, and we won't cover them all. But Genesis chapter 20. And some of us may know, because I can't say everybody on the phone, but some of us may know that you've had experiences. You've had experiences through your dreams, and whether you had a bad dream or a good dream, or some interaction in a dream either bothered you and it got up and it had you thinking about it all day, or it showed you something and later that day something like that happened, or later that week something like that happened. What is he trying to communicate to you? And that's just one of his modes of communication. So Genesis chapter 2, and then we'll pick it up at verse, Genesis chapter 20, I say, right? And we'll pick it up at verse 2. Now, this is a scenario in the Bible where the great patriarch Abraham is traveling. Apparently, his wife was fine. I mean, when people looked at her like, hey, man, this is one of the finest women I've ever seen. And folks said, hey, man, I mean, if she unavailable, I want to take her for myself, which wasn't right. But I want you to think about like this when we read this story.
I got it.
No, before you said that, I want you to think about like this. The word Abimelech, the word Melech, when you read it, is a Hebrew word that means king. So Abimelech is like friend, or it's a position of posture. It's a king. And what you want to think about a king is not necessarily like your neighborhood villain. I want you to think that Abraham was traveling, and let's say that he went to Iran, or let's say he went to Ghana, or let's say he went to Jamaica, and the president of Jamaica saw his wife. So when I talk about government, Abraham was moving in a way that the heads of government and he interacted with each other. So he wasn't like some common Joe Schmo. And the head of government saw his wife and was like, yeah, I'm taking her to myself. That's what we're getting ready to read. So Genesis chapter 20 and verse 2.
All right, verse 2. Now Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah.
So the king of Jamaica, or the king of Iran, or the king of the country he was traveling to, the king of the government saw her, or the president of the country, or the prime minister saw her and took her from her husband, which is already kind of foul in and of itself. But notice what happens. Keep reading.
But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, indeed, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife.
Now, how did he come to him?
In a dream.
In a dream. While the man was asleep. And the king woke up and was frightened, a dead man. And notice what the response was, verse 4.
But Abimelech had not come near her. And he said, Lord, will you slay a righteous nation also? Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And she, even she herself said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and innocence of my hands, I have done this. And God said to him in a dream, yes, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, for I also withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. Now, therefore, restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not restore her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours.
Oh, so he made that real clear. And one thing that you should also know is the divine consciousness or the divine being or the divine entity that we call God or Yah or Yahuwah, whatever words we use, he does not play around with a man taking another man's wife. Stay away from people's wives. He don't play with that. And he told him here, you a dead man. And how did he approach him? Through a dream. Now, we'll skip Acts for the sake of time because I think you get the point. But in Acts chapter 10, Peter had a dream. A lot of times people take this dream and now they think God said you can eat pig and all the rest of the stuff. Not the point of the dream, but he communicated to Peter in a dream. That's Acts chapter 10. You can read it. We won't necessarily go into it. So one of the things that we just looked at that we'll go back to is one of the modes of communication, one of the message that you hear the voice of God. It's through dreams. It's clear. He's going to communicate to you through a dream. And that dream, if you on the vision of your bed and you, let's say, got somebody else's wife and you say, you're a dead man. You woke up, man, send that woman back to where she come from. But the guy say, hey, man, I didn't know that the man told me he was a sister. And Abraham lied to the man and told him that, gave him a half truth, whatever. I mean, but told him his sister. Next mode of communication, or how do we know? We're going to go to prophets and teachers. Amos chapter 3 and verse 7. This round is going to go relatively quick, but we'll go to the prophet Amos. Should be around the middle of your Bible. Amos chapter 3, and we're going to read verse 7. So if somebody can get that, we will read Amos chapter 3 and verse 7. Amos 3, and when we get it, we will read verse 7.
Yeah, I got it.
Answering the question, how do we know that we are hearing his voice? Amos chapter 3 and verse 7 when you get it.
Yep. So Amos 3 and 7. For the Master Yahuwah does no matter unless he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets.
So notice this. He's not going to do anything. What does that mean? He's not going to do anything. The Creator is not going to do anything unless he do what?
Unless he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets.
What do he need to tell prophets for? Why is that necessary? Like, why is it necessary that the one who made the galaxies and all of the stars and all of the sun and all of the moon and the planets, and then turned around and made a strawberry, a pineapple, a walrus, an ant, and then a giraffe, why is that entity not going to do anything unless he start telling the prophets first? Why? Why would he, why does he need to communicate anything? Because one of his modes of communication is the people he call his prophets. Why? Because the word prophet in the Hebrew language means like a seer or one who's going to broadcast a message for you. Before he destroys the earth, he gonna send a messenger to you. Listen, before I've destroyed everybody, I'm gonna tell them that I'm coming. And the ones who gonna listen are gonna gather together and they're gonna avoid the destruction. Before I do anything, I'm gonna tell the prophets first. So how do I know when I hear people say, the world can end tomorrow? No, it can't. How do I know that? Because I've spent 2.5 decades reading the prophets and trying to get as clear as possible, the world cannot end just like that. Because he has a very clear sequence that has been playing out over a course of time, and that's just not the way the Creator works. He don't do nothing overnight. So there's no way that the world's going to end tomorrow. And I was in a Bible study maybe last week, and I was explaining to somebody the sun is never going to stop shining. It's like, oh no, the Bible say, no. I don't care what you think it says. I'm telling you what the prophet said. And what did Amos say? He's not going to do anything unless he reveals it to the prophets. Now, the prophets of God said through Yirmiyahu, which is Jeremiah, through Isaiah, the sun is never going to stop shining, period. Now, you're going to take your word for it or the prophet word. So I'm going to take the prophet's word. That's me. Now, somebody else, people get into all type of mysteries and ways that they want to interpret the text. I'm just going to say, man, I love what I read, and it has helped protect and guide my life. I'm just going to tell you, hey, man, that's what the prophet said. So he's not going to do anything unless he reveal it to the prophets first. Why? Because the prophets are going to go out and immerse themselves amongst the people. Normally, when the prophets come to the people, they get slapped down, beat up, thrown away. You take any prophet, all of them got slapped around, beat up, discarded. And okay, well, the people didn't listen. Well, hey, now he can move out the way and do what he said he was going to do. Deuteronomy chapter 18 and 15. Deuteronomy chapter 18 and 15. So one of the methods, we looked at dreams. Now we're looking at prophets and teachers.
I got it.
Yes, sir.
All right, verse 15. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your midst, from your brethren. Him you shall hear.
Okay, he's going to raise up a what? Now, people fuss about who this is. One of the immediate prophets that came up after Moses or Moshe was Joshua. And the name Joshua means Yah or God is salvation. So the immediate prophet, but this also is talking about Jesus or Yeshua of Nazareth, which I'm gonna raise up a prophet amongst you, amongst your brothers, and him will you hear. And what else does it say?
According to all you desire of the Lord your God in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, nor let me see this great fire anymore, lest I die.
So some of the people on that day, they heard all this noise and fire and trembling, and the mountain was shaking, and said, look, we don't want to hear that. Just get one of these people to talk to us that look like us. So he's going to raise up a prophet amongst you, and it says his voice you'll hear. So one of his methods of communication, now notice he said he's not going to do anything unless he reveal his secrets to the servants, the prophets. That's what Amos said. Here is saying, I'm going to raise up a prophet among you. Now again, Benny Hinn called himself a prophet. Okay. Now, if you want to go to Benny Hinn Church, you will notice one thing that's true is there's very little Bible being read. So notice the methodology that we're going through here, where we're going through text to text to text to text to text to make a coherent picture of our message. So when you go to Benny Hinn Church, and the prophet Benny Hinn, and everybody just pass out, and now they collect a big offering. I'm not going to tell you you're going to gain any intelligible information from a person like that. Romans chapter 10. Romans chapter 10.
Yeah, I got it.
Yes, sir. Romans chapter 10, we're going to pick it up at verse. Actually, we're going to skip down to our point just for the sake of time. Romans chapter 10, and we'll start at verse 14, just for the sake of time.
Yep. Romans 10 and 14.
Yes, sir.
How they shall call on him in whom they have not. How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without one proclaiming?
Keep going, verse 15.
And how shall they proclaim if they are not sent? As it has been written, how pleasant are the feet of those who bring the good news of peace, who bring the good news of the good.
So here he's making a statement that how shall people call, or how shall people come to the Creator if they have not been called? And how should they call unless somebody they believe, unless somebody they've heard? And how should they believe unless somebody got a preacher or a teacher to send to them? How are you going to gain any understanding? I'm telling you, I grew up in church, and I mean, it comes to the point where I'm like, I don't know what these people are talking about, because when I went to science class, we read science books. When I went to English class, we read English books. When I went to math class, we read math books. When I went to church, we didn't do no reading. So how am I going to learn anything if there's not a teacher that's going to different texts and showing me and teaching me, how do you study the Bible? How do you get clarity? Well, a teacher has to be sent, prophets and teachers. Now, today, whether people want to call people prophets or not, I don't necessarily get into that. But, and when I say I don't get to that, you may hear from me and I'm not going to walk around calling myself a prophet. You could, you can read the biblical definition of a prophet, and if the person can explain prophecies to you, they could be considered a prophet. They can explain what the Creator is saying to you, they could be considered a prophet. But I don't walk around calling myself that. I teach the Bible, that's plain as day. But a Bible teacher, yeah, you need a Bible teacher. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 20. Because we're looking at teachers and prophets. These are one of his modes of communications, teachers and prophets. Isaiah chapter 8 is real one verse. You can read all of 8. You can read chapter 1 through 7 and read it, then read verse 8 and then read the rest of the chapter if you want. I'm just getting to a point. Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 20. Isaiah 8 and verse 20.
I got it. To the law and to the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because there is no light in them.
So he ended up in verse 19 and a little earlier, people talking about signs and wonders, and he's talking about people who are wizards, and they always got these things on how you can come up with whether you hear the voice of God or not. And he's made it clear to God's law, so the law that he gave to Moses, the Old Testament law, and to the testimony or the words of the prophets, if they don't talk according to that, it's like we all in the dark and looking for food and nobody have a light. And then somebody cut on a light because they're the only one with it. That's the person you should listen to. And how do you know that that person has a light? They talk about the Torah or Yah's law and the prophets or the testimony of the prophets. They can guide you. Now, if they're not talking about that, I'm telling you, get away from them as soon as possible. They talk about some other book or they go on into, okay, let's get into the Quran again. Look, Quran don't have no prophecies in it. There's a bunch of, if you read it carefully enough, it just looked like it copied the whole Bible. And in another study, I'll do some excerpts on the Quran and the Bible, but it don't have it is not going to give you instructions like the Bible do, right? And if it does, it copied them from the Bible. And it's a whole history behind the Prophet Muhammad and how he got rejected and et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into all that now. Luke chapter 16, and we're going to speed read this, but Luke chapter 16 and verse 22. Because we're talking about the testimony of the prophets. Luke chapter 16, and we will go into verse 22. I'm going to go through a few more methods, and then we will try to transition out. But Luke chapter 16, and we're going to start at verse 22. We're going to skip down just for the sake of time, but Luke chapter 16 and verse 22.
Okay. And it came to be that the beggar died and was carried by the messengers to the bosom of Abraham. And the rich man also died and was buried.
All right, so this is, people interpret it differently. We can have a discourse on that at a later time. But in Luke chapter 16, Yeshua of Nazareth, or Jesus the Christ, is giving a parable of the rich man and Lazarus. Some people don't think it's a parable. We can have that discussion another time. But a parable is an example putting two things next to each other. And he's talking about a lot of things in this text. He's talking about social, political atmosphere, the rich and how they ignore the poor in the text. He's talking about a lot of things in this text. And I won't get into all of that at this moment. But the rich man and Lazarus, one was very well off and he ignored the needs of the poor. This is what the text is pointing out. And the man who was very well off, who ignored the needs of the poor, it start to call into question like, hey, God, help me while he's in hell, right? And this is a parable. I can get into that at another point. But verse 24, if you would.
Well, 24, and he says, and crying out, he said, Father Abraham, I have compassion on me, and sent Eleazar to dip the toe, to dip the tip of his finger in the water and cool my tongue, for I am suffering in this flame.
Keep going.
But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your life you received your good, and likewise Eleazar the evil. But now now he is comforted and you are suffering.
So people who are rich, this is kind of what it's talking about. Rich people, they drive around in luxury cars, they ignoring the needs of the poor, and now they suffering in a position in the future. And then the poor is being comforted. This is, again, I'm not going into the whole count. It's a parable. We could look at a different time. But read verse 27, because the rich man is begging for mercy now. The one who is very well off is begging for mercy now. And notice what he says in verse 27.
In 27, he says, and he said, then I beg you, Father, that you would send him to my father's house.
So he said, look, if you can't show mercy to me, then send people, because I have 5 brothers and they still alive. Please send people to my father's house to tell them, don't be like me. This is what he's saying. Keep going.
For I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, lest they also come to this place of torture.
Uh-huh.
Abraham said to him, they have Moshe and the prophets. Let them hear them. And he said, no, Father Abraham, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they shall repent. But he said to them, if they do not hear Moshe and the prophets, neither would they be persuaded, even if one should rise from the dead.
So notice
Wow.
here, we're talking about methods of communication, and one of them, how you hear the voice of God, is prophets and teachers. And here, a man is, let's say, in hell, and he's saying, please go back and tell my brothers so they don't end up in this torment. He said, look, I'm not going back to tell them nothing. They got the prophet Moses. If they don't hear Moses, he said, well, no, they need somebody to come from the dead to go tell them. And what is that pointing to? Who rose from the dead, as the Bible talks about, right? So look, people are not going to believe him if they don't believe the prophet Moses. So no, they got Moses and the prophets. Why? Because he reveals his secrets to the prophets. So if they don't believe Moses, okay, they don't need to talk about who rose from the dead in the New Testament. Like, if they don't believe Moses, let them suffer whatever they're going to suffer. Notice the importance on the prophets, that is a mode of communication. That's why when I talk to people, I can hear them say all type of stuff. And if they don't pull out something from the prophets as their foundation, now New Testament, I appreciate, I love it. But it always talks about something that's in the prophets or the book of Moses, right? The Old Testament, the law, or Genesis, or Exodus, or Leviticus, or Numbers. If they don't talk about that, I keep listening. I'm like, okay, that sounds real nice. But that's not what the prophets say. It's just not what the prophets say. I could love them, I could hug them, I could smile with them, but that's not what the prophets say. And what did Isaiah say? If they speak not according to this thing, we all in the dark and nobody have the light. But if they speak according to the law and the prophets, they have the light. They can guide us somewhere. So that's another mode of communication. We looked a little bit about that. I'm going to jump into the next 2 just for time's sake. I'm going to spend about maybe 8 or 10 more minutes. I don't know how y'all feel on time. Y'all had long days, etc. So I don't want to take up too much of the time. And I hope that someone is learning something from this. I'm kind of exhausting this so we can learn. But another method of communication is the law, or what is called the Torah. The Torah is essentially the first 5 books of Moses, and it is the instruction for mankind. So Psalms chapter 19, and if somebody else can pull up Psalms 119 and 142, but Psalms chapter 19, and you'll notice if you're ever in any religious or church circles, the first thing most of them try to do is get rid of the law of the Old Testament. That's the very first thing they do, man. Get rid of that old law. We don't need to keep that old law. But Psalms chapter 19, and pick it up at verse 7, if you would.
Yep, I got it. In Psalms 19, verse 7, the Torah of Yahuwah is perfect, bringing back the being. The witness of Yahuwah is trustworthy, making wise the simple.
Okay, so his law, right, is perfect. Perfect. So we can all get some clear instructions from something that is perfect, right? Like if you play sports and you shoot the perfect jump shot, then that's the person you want to defer to. If you cook and the person makes the perfect cake, that's the person you want to listen to. his law is perfect, right? And in his law, because it's perfect, we can learn from it, and it's one of his modes of communication. We just read that. Like he don't need to, nobody need to rise from the dead to give nobody no message. If they don't listen to Moses, they're not going to listen to some miraculous rising from the dead. So it's perfect. Psalms 119, 142.
I'm there.
Because this is the question somebody's going to ask, well, how do I know what the truth is? Well, let's find out, because it's real simple. It's real simple. We don't have to fly up to no heaven. We don't need no spaceship to find out what the truth is. Psalms 119 and 142.
Verse 142. Your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and your law is truth.
What is the truth?
His law.
Well, we just read that if they speak not according to the law and the testimony, they have no light in them. The same law he gave to Moses, that he said, if people don't believe that law, which is his mode of communication, they're not going to believe that people rose from the dead. So his law is the truth. And just because I like something said twice, let's read verse 151.
Verse 151. You are near, O Lord, and all your commandments are truth.
Now, how can we find out what the truth is? All his commandments are truth. All of them. That's what the text say. Again, I didn't just write this and sneak it in here before y'all read it and then immediately immerse all y'all in Bibles that I mailed out to y'all and y'all read like, oh man, he just put that there. His commandments are the truth. They're the absolute truth. So we're looking at how do we know we hear the voice of Yah or God. Again, Yah is a Hebrew word that means mighty power, etc. But we're looking at the voice of God. Two other modes, and I'm going to pop in these real quick. Another mode of communication is reproof. What does reproof mean? Can anybody tell me what they think reproof means?
Is it correction?
Correction? Anybody else? Anybody else? Reproof?
Almost like expression, like that's what I was gonna say, like expression, like you're not happy with somebody, or like blame, like you
Yeah,
said that.
an expression of blame or disapproval. Here are some of the, can y'all see this on the screen? Here are
Yeah.
some of the synonyms of reproof: rebuke, reprimand, admonishment, reproval, disapproval, criticism, condemnation, fault finding, slap on the wrist. Like, this is one way that he communicates, and we're going to look at that, right? Through reproof, we're going to look at one of the modes of his communication. Because we asked him, how do we hear, how am I clear? Because we just read Abimelech got reproved. You took some man's wife, and he came up through your dream and reproved you. Now, he used that method. He used the method of dreams to do another method that he uses reproof. Because he wants you to do the right thing. So because you may be doing the wrong thing, either he's going to tell you or he's going to send somebody to tell you. And if you don't like it, your heart's in the wrong place. Your mind's in the wrong place. Because the only reason people don't like what they told to do is because they want to do something that they're not supposed to be doing. So a couple of texts we'll look at. 1 Samuel. Let's go to Proverbs. Let's go. Yeah, we'll go to 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 12 and verse 1. 1 Samuel 12 and verse 1.
I got it.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all reading, man. This is real helpful.
Yep.
1 Samuel 12 and verse 1.
And Samuel said to Israel, look, I have listened to your voice and all that you said to me, and have set a sovereign over you. And now look, the sovereign is waiting for you, and I am old and gray. And look, my sons are with you, and I have walked before you from my youth to this day. Look, here I am, witness against me before Yahuwah and before his anointed, whose ox I have taken, or whose donkey I have taken, or whom have I oppressed? Whom have I abused, or from whose hand have I received any bribe with which to blind my eyes? Then I restore it to you. And they said, you have not oppressed us or abused us, nor have you taken any bribe from anyone's hand. So he said to them, Yahuwah is witness against you, and his anointed is witness today that you have found naught in my hand. And they answered, He is witness. And Samuel said to the people, It is Yahuwah who appointed Moshe and Aaron, and who brought your fathers up from the land of Mizraim. And now stand still so that I judge you before Yahuwah concerning all the righteous acts of Yahuwah, which he did to you and your fathers. When Yaakov came to Mizraim, and your fathers cried out to Yahuwah, and Yahuwah sent Moshe and Aaron, who brought your fathers out of Mizraim and made them dwell in this place. But they forgot Yahuwah your Elohim, so he sold them into the hand of Sisera, commander of the army of Hatzor, and into the hand of the Philistines, and into the hand of the sovereign of Moab, and they fought against them.
So notice here what we're reading essentially. The prophet is asking, have I ever robbed y'all? Have I ever taken money from y'all? Have I ever done anything wrong with y'all? Have I took bribes? Have I done anything to y'all? And that they say, hey man, you never did something to us. So I'm innocent. And then he told them some things about themselves. And then he told them here, when y'all start doing wrong, what did the Creator send? He sent another nation to punish them. That's what he did. And if you start reading the prophets, and again, in another study, I want to get into some world history and how it's told in the Bible. But when the king of Babylon, which is an ancient king and it's an empire, you can look it up in any history book. If you took world history in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th grade, Babylon ruled the world for a period of time. And when the king of Babylon did things wrong, the God of heaven sent Persia and crushed the Babylonians. And when the Persians did something wrong, he sent the Medes and crushed the Persians. And when the Medes did something wrong, he sent the Greeks and crushed them. He uses empires to crush other empires. Who crushed Britain? It was America. Who's the most powerful nation now? And now he's going to send somebody to crush them too, because he will do nothing unless he sent a prophet first. And then in that process, he's going to say to them, look, I'm going to reprove you first before I bring destruction. And what do you say here? I sent them the reproof. Let's pop over to Proverbs chapter 6. So he sent the reproof, and how did the reproof come? Through the other nations of the Philistines and the kings of Moab, and they fought against them. Now you can go read the whole account. We just kind of speeding through, and we're talking about this mode of communication here. But he sent the Philistines, and the Philistines crushed the people. I mean, again, to exaggerate it out, because we'll look at another study in the future, if y'all hang in there. Why does the Creator allow evil to happen? Oh, well, innocent babies die, and they think that, everybody think God is like the Michelin man and the Pillsbury Doughnuts. Oh, he's just supposed to be nice to everybody all the time. No. He's not nice all the time. That's just not the way it works. So Proverbs chapter 6 and verse 23.
I'm there.
Yes, sir.
Verse 23. For the commandment is a lamp and the law a light.
So we read that in Isaiah, the commandment and the law is a light, right? And a lamp, okay? What else does it say?
Reproofs of instruction are the way of life.
Hey,
Verse
listen,
20.
man, the reproofs of instructions are what does it say?
Way of life.
The way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do something wrong and man, why are you always on my back? Because you're not doing things right. Like, you shouldn't have took that man's money. You weren't being honest right there. And people you think you better than me? You can't judge me. People get into that instead of taking the reproof or the instructions. Because the instructions, and again, it's not easy to be reproved. When somebody comes along with it, and sometimes people think it's easy. Because I've been reproved by people and I had to do it. And normally people wrestle and they squirm and they defend and they get defensive. But what you did was wrong. And how do I know it's wrong? Let's turn over to the prophets and just say, hey, I asked you, did you take the candy and you lied? Right? I'm just kind of giving that example. You lied. Okay, some people say, oh man, I'm about to do this, so I have to pay all these taxes. You should not be lying on your taxes. Well, man, everybody do something. No, see, I'm not getting into that with you. You shouldn't be lying on your taxes. Well, you could take the reproof or you could not take the reproof. Now, I can do a whole 10-week Bible study on reproof, right? But here it says, The reproof of instructions are the way of life. And when we read that, the next chapter, you have a man telling his son, stay away from wicked women. The other chapters tell women, stay away from evil men, right? Reproof or instructions are the way of life. But people do not like to be told what to do. Read verse 24. And we're going to
24.
skip on because I got to go to one other kind of precept and we're going to try to get out of here.
Okay. Verse 24. To keep you from the evil woman, from the flattering tongue of a seductress. And in verse 25, do not lust after her beauty in your heart, nor let her allure you with her eyelids.
There's been plenty of brothers that I've been around say, hey man, you don't need to be around a woman like that, man. She her, the girls is sticking out of the top of her clothes and she just said like you don't need to be around a woman like that. Oh man, I can handle it. Listen, brother, I'm telling you, you don't, and women too. Look, you don't need to be, if you're not married to that man, you don't need to be out with him at 11 o'clock at night. Oh, you perfect? So, see, listen, we're not getting into that. We're not talking about, we're getting into that. You should, and what happens later on? Almost everybody I tried to warn fell exactly into what I told them to avoid. Because reproofs of instruction is one way God communicates. And it's so difficult to follow instruction, especially when your flesh don't want to. Well, I can just do what I want to do. And yeah, you'll suffer the repercussions of it. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 16. I'm really about to get y'all out of here. This is a little longer, but I wanted to squeeze. I told you we had a lot of text to go through. But 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 16. I'll look at what else is after this, and we'll probably take a pause before I jump into the other methods. But 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 16.
I
And we're
got it.
asking the question, how do we know that we hear the Almighty's voice? We looked at dreams, he communicates through that way. We looked at his prophets, he communicates through that way. We look at reproof, he communicates through that way. We look at his instruction and his law, he communicates through that way. All different modes that he communicates. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 16.
All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for
How
reproof,
much? How many scriptures?
for doctrine.
How many scriptures is given?
Oh,
All of them.
Scriptures. Okay. All scriptures is given by what?
Inspiration of God.
Okay. It's all like, so people get into, oh, this man wrote the Bible. See, the funny thing about that is the people who say that somebody else did the work, and again, they get off into this. Essentially, what they're saying is you really can't find out what's true. When you corner them down to it, they're normally doing something that the Creator told them not to do. So it's okay if you're saying, oh, man wrote the Bible and you live in a moral, upright life. But you sleeping with 6 different women and now you're trying to say that it ain't no God. No, see, I'm not doing that with you. I'm not. That's wrong. And now you're trying to eliminate the responsibility so you can go do what you want to do. That's how people get into it. But all scripture is inspirational from the Creator. And keep going.
And is profitable for doctrine,
For doctrine, so you can learn good teachings. And what else?
for reproof,
For reproof, so you can be told that you're doing the wrong thing. And for what else?
for correction,
And for correction, right? Like we all wrote papers and got red marks on it. We all learned how to drive and turn the wrong way and got a speeding ticket. Okay, that's correction. You can't be doing that. That's what the scriptures is for. And for what else?
for instruction in righteousness,
That the man of what?
that the man of God may be complete,
Or,
thoroughly equipped
uh-huh.
for every good work.
And another text says that he may be perfect. Well, you can't be perfect. See, that I'll get into that in a whole nother Bible study. That is not true. Perfect just means mature. Some people take perfect to mean flawless. When the Bible uses the word perfect, it just means mature and upright. And yes, you can be mature and upright through instructions. I am going to skip the last two just for the sake of time. We can get back into these, but two other, I'll just review them, but the processes, another way that you know you hear the voice is through lots or prayer. I'll talk about that at a different time. And then another way that you can clearly hear the voice is I mentioned lots in prayer, and maybe the harder decision. Okay, so how do you know that it is the right thing to do? Generally, it is the way harder decision. You have to wrestle and do. I've watched some men who like, I don't know if I should get married, but you was okay sleeping with all of these women. So now when it's the right thing to do, well, I don't know. See, no. See then just don't be sleeping around. See, I don't have no problem if you don't want to get married, a man or woman. Just stop abusing women. Because I don't really appreciate any man abusing a woman, or for that matter, women abusing men. But how do you know it's the right decision? Normally it's the harder thing to do. Now it's probably pretty hard to go without, if you've ever been exposed to it, to go without sexual relationships. That's probably pretty hard. Now, how you know it's the right thing to do? Because it's the harder thing. It's the harder thing, right? So normally when it's like, okay, how do I know that the Creator told me to do this? It's probably the thing that you really don't want to do. That's how you know it's the right thing. So we looked at multiple ways that you hear the voice. I will pause there. I really appreciate folks listening in, but I didn't want to go too far, and for time's sake. Did want to get into thoughts, feedback, takeaways. Did anybody learn anything? Is this man crazy? I don't know where he got this stuff from. He's taking all these texts. I ain't planning on hearing all this. Let's hear some thoughts, some feedback, et cetera, et cetera.
Appreciated it.
And did anybody learn anything? Did you learn anything? Okay.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll say I obviously learned a lot. I mean, practically, I have some reading material to go back over, but you categorized it in different categories and how God speaks to us through dreams, through reproof, and you showed us in the text where it is plainly, and you showed multiple texts. It wasn't like you say you just slipped this in here and gave us all a PDF. Hey, this is what God's saying. Like we read from different versions of the Bible, and it all was consistent. The truth is consistent. And so that's one of the things, one of the major takeaways I have from tonight. Obviously, I need to digest this. This is a feast. So thank you for this. Really do. I really appreciate it.
Hallelujah. Whoever have their hand raised, they probably gonna be going last. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Is that Yakisha or is that Andrew? You are up. Yes.
Shalom. It's both. It's both. Toda Moray, I think this
Hallelujah.
was an amazing lesson. And I concur with you that we need to revisit this. This information probably needs to be digested in multiple week setting. I would like to come back to this. I know you got an agenda, but I would like to come back to this and really chew on hearing, the methods of hearing, whether it be from dreams, Torah speaks the accurate word of Abba Yahuwah, and then just the signs and wonders as well. Just maybe getting into that. I think this is a lesson that probably could take multiple weeks. So I'm going to yield because Maisha has a question in regarding the dreams. And I know that was one of the things that you spoke on this evening about him speaking through dreams. She has dreams, and at times I have dreams, but she remembers hers a lot more frequently than I remember mine. And I probably want to discuss if you're unable to remember it, is that something repressing it, or is it, but let me yield so that Maisha can act. Go ahead, man.
Shalom. I just wanted to clarify when you said that you hear him through dreams, because I am a huge dreamer, and I know that all dreams aren't from, some dreams are from Hasatan. So how do you distinguish if it's from him or from Hasatan?
Oh, here's the truncated answer, and I'll first address the question your husband asked, or the thought your husband asked. One of the reasons that I started this series out like this, in terms of just compacting some of the content in there, is part of it is a fishing mechanism, right? Like everybody can hold a Bible study, right? But I want you to hear some clear, sound teachings and the method, so you'll be enticed to come back. Like, okay, I want to. Again, this is a Bible study,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Fish
So,
on the reel. Fish on the reel.
so once you look at the method, and then I begin to draw things out and expound. Really, we
Yeah.
could look at one text for 2 hours. What I
Yeah.
did was,
Yeah.
that's not the best method because I really want you to learn, but that's more of an overview. So, yes, we will go back and we can look at when we, this is like week 2 or 3 of this series. And if y'all say, hey, because I'm always asking, is anybody learning anything? Okay, did you learn anything?
Yeah.
My teachers asked me, I did all this talking, did anybody learn anything? And if the answer is yes, when we start doing the series, yeah, we'll just do one series on that. And without sounding dramatic, honestly, and I'm not trying to be funny or nothing, without sounding dramatic, we can teach on 500 or 1,000 different topics, but we just got to do it piece by piece. And you have to be able to hang in there to get the big picture, because some things I'll say in a Bible study, if you're not willing to stay around and listen, you can be like, nah, this man is definitely off of his rocker, right? I said in the Bible study a couple of weeks ago to somebody, and it's like, the sun is never going to fall out the sky. Well, right here it said, look, let's go back to what the prophet said. And I showed them, and they was like, yeah, no, that's what, see, in the Bible is not going to contradict itself. So I just want to echo that thought first. In terms of how do you know that a dream is from like Hasatan or the devil or from the creator, that's probably more like a longitudinal examination, but here's a couple of points. One is that embedded in his message or dreams. Well, first I'll say this. The word Satan, does anybody know what that means?
Me, deceiver.
Deceiver. Okay.
Anybody else?
Adversary or accuser?
Yes. So the word Satan means adversary. And just bear with me because I'm gonna make some statements and I'm like, oh, time to get off the Bible study. And I don't know what everybody's understanding is, but okay. If you conceive that Satan is this person with a pitchfork and red hair and horns sticking out their ear, and that's your ideal of what Satan is, then I'm saying that Wakanda is a real place too. But Wakanda is not a real place, and Satan is not that being that people portray it to be. The word Satan literally just means adversary. So why did Yeshua of Nazareth or Jesus the Christ say to Peter, get behind me, Satan? Was Peter the devil? So that means it's a legitimate Bible study question. Peter just said, you're not going to die. And the one we know as Jesus of Nazareth or Yeshua HaMashiach, he said, get behind me, Satan. Well, he was only talking to Peter. But because Peter did not want him to die, which was, who wants their friend to die? Why would you want to see your friend die? And when he was attacked or came to taken hold by the Romans, Peter grabbed a sword and said, "Oh, y'all over my body, y'all not touching him," and chopped off somebody's ear. But that activity was an activity of Satan. Why? Because he said, "No man take my life, I give it down." So sometimes when we hear the word Satan, we often is like ether world dealing with some other of our imagination. And the reason that that's important to draw out is because when we study the Bible, a dream could be from the adversary and it still be for our benefit because it helps grow us and develop us, because that's what the adversary does. So, example, if you do too many push-ups and your muscles start hurting, you can call that pain the adversary because you need adversity to get strength or growth. It's not all to your detriment. And again, it's a lot packed in that statement, but how do you know it's from the creator? One, is it's going to direct you in the course of life. Two, it's going to warn you. Anytime you read people having dreams, it was warnings in the scripture. Joseph had a dream with his wife. And he said, look, I didn't lay with this woman. How is this woman pregnant? And a dream came to him, an angel or whatever it said, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm not reading it. Don't be afraid to take your wife, because otherwise he wouldn't have did it. And then another dream came to him and said, hey, man, they're killing all the boys under 2 years old. I need you to go down to Egypt to another city. It warned him. All right. You have another dream where we just read Abimelech and Pharaoh. We had another dream, or Abraham. We had another dream where Joseph said he was going to be head over his 12 brothers and these stars and crowns, and we later see that happened. Some dreams just come from the busyness of the mind. Some dreams become because we watch so many images and shows, and our mind is just bombarded, and our mind is just running. But how do we know clearly that it's from him? Now, if you have a dream that you should divorce Andrew and get back with your high school sweetheart, that's from the devil. Okay? I don't care who else told you that. It's from the devil, because the text don't say that you should divorce him and get back with your high school sweetheart. So how do we know it's from the devil or from Satan? It tells you something opposite of what the text says. And we also know that the Bible says in Leviticus or whatever have you, in the mouth of two or more witnesses should every matter be established. So it shouldn't just be a dream without some other witness, because otherwise people be off in the quasars. And there's some other details about that, but that's kind of like the truncated version of view on that. Did that help answer your question?
But yes, it did. Need some clarification on that.
Did you have another question in tandem with that?
No,
Okay.
I'm good for now.
I saw a couple mics getting ready to open. Any other thoughts or questions?
I had a quick question,
Yes,
actually a
sir.
couple. So you quoted a verse or mentioned a verse that said something along the lines of, if they speak not this thing, we're all in the darkness.
Yes, sir.
Could you direct me to where that is?
Isaiah 8 and verse 20.
Isaiah 8:20. And the other thing was the pit. It mentioned I think it was Job, but there was one of the verses we looked at. It talked a lot about the pit, and I've been studying the kingdom and life after death and these things, and the pit came up as one of the words. You've got the grave, you've got Sheol, Hades, and then you've got like the pit and Tartarus. What exactly is the pit referring to?
The pit it uses normally like three different kind of references, but normally when you see the pit, it's talking about the place of imprisonment that all man is subject to be confined to. And that pit is death. That's the major pit when you read in the text that it's talking about. Sometimes it's talking about something else, but all man is subject to be confined to this place of death. And if you take, for example, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Isaiah chapter, I think it's worded like this in Isaiah 25. It's not Isaiah 25, but I thought it was Isaiah 25 that is worded like that. I'll look up another precept or text to go along with it, but normally that pit that it's talking about is the pit or the place, death itself. And when you read other texts, like in the New Testament, talk about death is swallowed up in victory.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look up, let me see, it's another text that maybe it's Second Peter. Let me see if I can find this other text in Peter. I have to find it and follow up with you, but you look at it in either first or second Peter, he starts to use this language that angels were reserved in chains of darkness, and it's this more or less like poetic language that it's using. And that I think Messiah went down to the pit. I have to find the text. It'll take me a second to think about where it is. But normally what it's referring to is that grave or that place of death. Normally that's what it's referring to. Every now and then it may be referring to something different. But normally it's referring to that grave or that place of death. That's normally what it's referring to.
And for those other places is if it's not like a long explanation, I know you're trying to wrap up, but for those other uses, what are they real quick? I mean, I don't need verses, but like you said, it could be, it's normally referring to death. What are the other things it refers to?
So like sometimes it's a hole in the ground, like literally. So if you look at Exodus, let's see, let me check. 21. Yeah, I mean, if you look at in the Torah, it says, "And if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, or an ox or an ass fall in it, then the owner of the pit shall make it good, etc." So in that sense, you're talking about a place of the grave, right? So that's one place of the pit. Another place of the pit, you can go down to Psalms chapter 30. Psalms 30. So it can literally be a hole in the ground. And normally that is a place where people go for death. Sometimes it is like a cave, like it is normally not a place that's inhabited, or it can be a place for death. So Psalms chapter 30, is it? Psalms chapter 30.
Verse 3.
Yeah, try verse 3.
It says, Yahuwah, you brought me up from Sheol. You have kept me alive from going down into the pit.
Yeah, and here it's talking about the grave, right? Like you kept me from going down to the grave or to the pit. And Sheol, the grave, the pit, the place of death. I mean, there are people who get into another space, which is, again, we won't necessarily get into tonight. But people go into this place that is this netherworld, and there's people in chains that's literally down there, and they having conversations and they waiting on judgment. It's people who teach stuff like that. I do not teach that. When you dead, you're dead. You can't talk, you can't think, there's no kind of activity going on. But that place in Psalms chapter 30 that's talking about is he kept me from the pit or the grave. Sometimes it can also be a place, I think the first study, or maybe a couple weeks ago, we looked at that term of life and death, how you can be alive and still be dead. You remember that study we looked at? That place can also be a pit where you're walking around and it's like the walking dead that the Bible talks about. You breathe in, you go into the grocery store, you riding your bike, you driving a car, you going to work, you're doing IT, and in your consciousness, you're in a pit, meaning you reside or you abide in death. So those are examples of normally what the pit is talking about, but that place or the grave is generally what it's talking about. In Revelations, you may read that people rose out the bottomless pit. So it can be a big abyss, like a volcano-ish type of thing, or a deep gate between two holes in a mountain. That can also be called a pit. So there are different answers to it, but generally when you hear the pit, it's the place where people are considered to go when they're dead. They literally like dig out your grave nowadays and put you in the ground, or they put you in a cave, and that can be also called a pit. All right, I need some more burning questions here. I see that questioning look on a couple of faces. Newcomers have to ask questions too. So Corey, Imani, Mr. Clark.
Shalom, Moray.
Yes, sir.
I got another question while they still pondering to try to get their questions framed right. When you talk about hearing from the prophet, I understand that the accuracy of the prophet has to be 100%. It ain't like you said, it can't be close to or near to. It has to be accurate 100%. So when it comes to modern day times of hearing from prophecy and trying to judge things righteously, and I say judge things righteously because a prophet could say something and it not be the season for it to be fulfilled yet. So if you're judging it by the current season and it's for a season yet to come, unless they themselves say it's within this time frame. So let me frame this question this way. In our modern day time, with there's a lot of false prophets or false people who claim to be prophets, there's this YouTube sensation that's going on, or who people who are claiming to be subject matter experts on things and really are novice in various different things. How does discernment work so we can judge righteously for those who are proclaiming to be prophet and those who are sent, or saying thus has said Yahuwah, if that makes sense?
Good question. Really good question. I would say the best thing that you can do is go back to Isaiah 8 and 20. Do they testify to the law and the prophets? Again, I was on a call and somebody started talking about this lady on the internet, and apparently she gave 400 prophecies and they all came true. That's what was said on the call, right? And it was like, oh, she prophesied that Donald Trump was going to be assassinated. And then it was an older gentleman and he kept talking about it. And I said, Donald Trump's still alive. Well, then he tried to skip over it. I'm saying, no, we're not going to skip over that. Donald Trump is not assassinated. Now, I'm not talking about an attempted assassination. You said this woman was on the internet and said that he was going to be assassinated. Assassinated means you're dead. Okay, he got his ear pierced, and I watched him in an interview a week later, and wasn't he had the thing off his ear, but he's still alive. I mean, he's still walking around and he's still going for president. So that informed me, one, whoever you listen to is telling a bold-faced lie. Two, the fact that you claim that you have some connection with the Bible and you believe this person, that you a novice and you shouldn't be parading this stuff around, is true. So for me, it's the law and the testimony. And then if you give something that's false, then I just have to give you time. That's the best thing you can do. The best thing you can do is be patient and give people time. Because they can go 1 for 1 and be like, oh man, this is spot on. They can go 2 for 2 and like, oh man, this is spot on. They can go 10 for 10, they spot on. Wait till number 11. Now that may take 4 years. Now, should you be skeptical of everybody? I'm not necessarily saying that, but you want to see, are they talking out of the text? Are they talking out of the text? That's important. And some people, like, they go through some superficial, like, oh, I'm going to pray. And I've heard people tell me, like, and other people I know who teach the Bible, man, I was told to stop listening to you. Okay, bye. I mean, what do you want me to say? I mean, really, what do you want me to say? Because you may have been told to stop listening to it. I can't tell you if the creator told you that. I don't know. I don't get into that with people. Okay, if he told you stop talking to me, then bye. I mean, what am I going to say about that? Maybe you're not the sheep that hear the voice. I don't know. But things like that make people like me and others who study and present the Bible more suspect because there's so many false people out there. But the best thing I can say is, do they talk to the law and testimony, number one? Give them time, number two. And what I found is when I give people time, whatever is truly inside them, this is what Yeshua said, or Jesus of Nazareth said, and the prophets, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So if it's something in you that really just want to be the man in people and everybody know that I'm the one who give these prophecies, then I know enough about the Almighty that he's going to set you up at the perfect time to make you crumble in front of everybody because something in you that's not right. And when he do it, he going to make it public. Example, my brother went to, they call him Bishop Eddie Long. And I remember when I was telling people I used to go to work with, like, that man is a fraud. Man, how you going to call a bishop a fraud? And they look at me like I'm a weirdo because I don't go to the mega church and all that. I'm saying, look, man, that man is a fraud. Oh, you gonna call a bishop? And they sounded like they didn't even go to his church. They live like 7 states away. But when that man got caught apparently touching little boys, see, there's nothing you need to talk to me about. See, the Bible says the bishop must be blameless. What does that mean? That means when you go down for something, which you shouldn't be anyway, it shouldn't be little boys, okay? No teenage males, shouldn't no men be coming up and saying some other men touched me inappropriately. And you got the Bible in your hand. So you just watch people and give them a period of time. So if somebody can say that they subject matter experts, I'm telling you, you watch people over the course of time, you keep studying and reading your scriptures and your Bible, and you will clearly see that these men do not possess what they profess. It just takes time, though. Just give them time. And every word should be, so to speak, double checked, cross-examined. People bring up stuff like, and when you have questions, ask me. And I'll say this and stop waxing poetic about it. I was in a Bible study group and somebody was talking about, they get off into this ether thing where they, the ether world and the heavens. Okay, you gotta, in order to ascend to the throne of prayer, you gotta go 3 steps up, and then you gotta bind the devil and put him into. Listen, the Bible don't talk nowhere about you binding no devil and putting him in no chains. You don't have that authority. When you read what the text says, it says in Jude, you just say stuff like, get thee behind me, Satan, but you don't even interact with that like that. You don't get into that. The text don't give you no authority to do that. Maybe quote a scripture and, resist the devil and he will flee. But you giving me a protocol, like verbatim, on how you go into the heavens and you bind. Man, where you read that at? And I asked the person in the Bible, said, what, can you show me the text? Oh, well, everything not in the Bible. Stop right there. Stop. When the Bible stopped talking, that's when Moses stopped talking. So I'm not going to tell you something when people ask me, well, what does the Bible say? If it's not there, I can't make it up. And I just want to be as honest as possible with myself. People get into, what does the Bible say about doing? Listen, if it's not there, I'm not going to make it up. So I don't get into that with people. If I can't read it and show it to you in the text, I'm not trying to make it up. So for me, the law and the testimony, you give them some time, and whatever's inside them, it'll reveal itself. It'll show, and you got to have faith in that. Oh no, it'll come out, and it'll come out in sometimes the worst way. And when you watch them, it's like, sheesh. And just for the record, like, people may stumble and fall, but they'll get back up and be right? Because it may be a case where they need to be reproved, and nobody's above reproach in that sense. You can mess up, but you're not going around, talking and professing some falsities, and then I'm supposed to pat you on the back for that. I'm generally, and for those who've been around me, I don't know. I'd rather be put out of somebody's ministry for telling them, I'm saying the Bible don't say that. I'd rather be put out than sit along and go along with it. And I'd rather suffer the resistance. I'm saying, nah, the Bible don't say that. Which has happened before. People like, you of the devil. because I told you to, like, no, the Bible don't say what you're saying. Now you asked me, did I have questions? And I asked, and now you creating an argument with me. The Bible does not say what you're saying. Well, it's time for you to leave. Oh, ma'am, okay, I'll leave. But the text doesn't say what you're saying. Because I don't appreciate people lying on the Bible. Makes my work a lot harder. Yes, sir.
Shalom. If they're not going to ask questions, I got another one. So, um, when you speak of hearing from Abba Yahuwah through dreams, through prophets, and um, being the heart of right, what about hearing them for yourself? Like, and I got to judge myself on this. Is that, me and my Isha, just share a brief thing. It's like we were on this pursuit to get land last year, and we thought we heard clearly from Abba that this was the place that we were supposed to be. We prayed about it, and we thought this was where we were supposed to go. Only to come to find out, it failed the inspection. Everything started falling through. And now, while we here now, we're on another land, scoping out an area, and that's why we at a campsite now to check out the area where we are now. So, if you had talked to me last year around this time, I was almost certain that I was walking in what I thought I had heard from Abba Yahuwah, but it didn't come to fruition. So now I'm out here on this journey doing it again in a different location, different time. So when we talk about hearing from him, sometimes your own desires, how do you separate your own desires and wills, even though it may be righteous intentions to do something for Abba Yahuwah? How do you separate that from actually hearing distinctly, this is Abba Yahuwah? Now, like I said, that one failed and he gave us some correction as a result of that. But now we pursue it again. It's like, I'm not sure if you understand the question. Like,
No,
how
I
do you
totally understand
decide?
the question.
Yeah,
So
and I yell.
one example we read where the prophet was told to go into town. And then another prophet, and he was told, do not have a meal with nobody, don't eat with nobody, don't spend time, don't go to nobody's house, go in, give my message and leave and don't come back through. And through that process, you heard somebody else say, oh, I'm a prophet too, come back into the city. And the question is, how did he know that he was hearing or wasn't hearing the clear voice of the instruction? So one thing that we know in the text, it says, at the mouth of two or more witnesses, let every matter be established. So one of the ways that I'm convinced that you would know, and even personally, so to speak, at the mouth of two or more witnesses, some of it is like, okay, he told you, or you thought you was clear on this exact land, and maybe that still was the case. Maybe just the timing was off. Maybe a year from now, he's gonna put you right back in that scenario. It's like, this is what I want you to do. Maybe, and this is what we see that I think we read it in Job chapter 33, and I'll go to the text momentarily, is that he's pulling you away to his purpose. All right, I want you to go do this, but I need to, let's say, kind of entrap you in this direction first. And I'll give you the example that I just gave before I got on the phone. I had just been looking at an automobile on the internet. And I'm like, sheesh, I can get this like $50,000, $60,000 car for like $10,000, $15,000. So I bid on it. And all of a sudden, right before the Bible study, I'm like, let me run and go get a coffee. I put the bid in. I'm like, oh, the people will keep bidding on it. I lost it for $100. Well, to me, I wasn't supposed to have it. It's not a huge deal, but that's told me clearly, like, I'm not fighting it. It's over. It passed. It's cool. No problem. But let's look at this also, right? So one of the ways we hear, and I just made mention, is at the mouth of two or more witnesses. And can somebody pull that text up? It should be Leviticus. Oh, Deuteronomy maybe? chapter 17. So this is one way that you know, the mouth of two or more witnesses. So when you take something personal, and just bear with me because I'm about to make a statement that's out of liberty. God don't care about everything. God, I'm gonna pray we win this soccer game. Like he not into those. All right, I'm gonna pray about what I should wear today. I'm not convinced he's that concerned about the intimate details of a person's life like that. But if you consult him about it, notice what is pointing out. And I'm again, sheesh. We'll look at Deuteronomy chapter 17. And if somebody can get it, we'll start at verse 6. So the question is around how do I know for certain, right? About something that's personal that I'm inquiring about, if this is the direction I should be going.
I got it. All right, so Deuteronomy 17, verse 6. At the mouth of two or three witnesses shall he that is about to die be put to death, but he is not put to death by the mouth of one witness.
Okay, so now we're not putting nobody to death, but you get the point, right? Out of the mouth of two or more witnesses. This is how the matter is generally established. Two or more witnesses. Okay, I want to go do this thing, but if I'm not certain about it, I want at least, according to the text, two or more witnesses. Now that's talking about people be put to death. But notice this. Go to 2 Corinthians chapter 13.
I got it.
Yes, sir. 13 and start at verse 1. So I'm thinking about this decision. I prayed and I'm convinced, oh man, I'm supposed to buy this piece of land or I'm supposed to buy this car. And like, I think I got the signs. I think I'm clear on it. Then, okay, something happened. It's like, oh, I didn't get it. Maybe I was being misled the whole time. What did I say? 2 Corinthians? Chapter
2
13? Okay,
Corinthians
verse
13,
1.
verse 1. This will be the third time I am coming to you. By the mouth of two or three witnesses, every word shall be established.
So notice when we did this Bible study, I went to a text here, a text there, a text there that all painted a composite picture. So, okay, should I buy this house or this house? Then two or more witnesses. Okay, I'm going to pray, I'm going to get clarity, and two or more witnesses can arise. That's how the structure of right is set up. Because it's not just going to be one voice saying, or like, okay, well, I thought it was going to be this. Normally it's two or more witnesses. Now, take a look at this, and I think it's Judges chapter 13. I think it is. Judges chapter 13. Judges. Oosh. I'm struggling tonight. Judges. Okay, y'all read the Bible. Where is the story of Gideon at? Where am I going? It's in my Bible study. Chapter 9, is it? Oh, Judges chapter 7. Judges chapter 7. Oh, Judges chapter 7, and just for the truncated version, let's start at verse 4. So this is a story or an account where Gideon is getting ready to go out to war, and he's uncertain about, normally like whether he was going to win or whether whatever have you, right? So notice the process that he began to follow. Judges chapter 7 and what were we saying,
Verse 4.
Huh?
But the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be that of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And of whomever I say to you, this one shall not go with you, the same shall not go. Verse 5. So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps from the water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on his knees to drink. Verse 6. And the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men, but all the rest of the people got down on their knees to drink water.
Okay, so notice that, and we're going to back up a little bit to chapter 6, but notice that he's going through this process to be able to tell, how am I clear that this is the voice of the Creator? Right, now let's back up to chapter 6. Now he's getting ready to go to war. I think the people he's going with had way more soldiers than he had, and he's not clear on how do I know for certain that this is the Creator's voice? So let's back up to chapter 6. And maybe start at verse 36.
Okay. Verse 36. So Gideon said to God, if you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said, look, I shall put a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece only, and it is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said. And it was so. When he rose early the next morning and squeezed the fleece together, he wrung dew out of the fleece, a bowlful of water. Then Gideon said to God, do not be angry with me, but let me speak just once more. Let me test, I pray, just once more with the fleece. Let it now be dry only on the fleece, but on all the ground let there be dew. And God did so that night, and it was dry on the fleece only, but there was dew on all the ground.
So here what we're reading is a man is trying to determine, should I really be clear that you're going to save the nation by me going to war? Now, he eventually, kind of went down, whittled his army down to 300 people. So he was real kind of shaky, like, is this the right decision? Is that the right decision? And sometimes, and I encourage people to, go through this process if you would. If you are not sure, then provoke the Almighty and ask him to give you a clear-cut sign that this is what I should be doing or not. And this is an example here. All right, first, well, tomorrow morning, I'm gonna put this blanket down on the ground. And if it's dew on the blanket, but not on the ground, because on the ground it's coming, then that's gonna be a sign for me. And then that sign came to pass. Like, oh, okay. But then it's like, oh, that's not good enough. Don't be mad. Let me ask one more sign to see if this happened. And he asked for another sign because you're just uncertain. So he asked for another witness or another sign and say, okay, if he do these two things, then I'm going to be more certain. Because some decisions that we're making, they take so much out of us because we're tormented by the decision-making process. We're trying to figure it out. And for me, my process is something like Gideon. Like, should I move to this place or that place? Should I do this or do that? And when I'm tormented, man, I put all that back on the one who, in the beginning, created the heaven and earth. See, he made a watermelon, he made a strawberry, and he made eyes. And guess what? He made these things called ears. And guess what? That do not sound like a dog barking, because your ears can clearly delineate this from roof, roof, dog. Whoever did that, I need to consult that entity about my decision-making process, because I just don't know that much. So if you can make a distinction in sound, and I'm like, yo, all these sounds sound different, then I need to ask you, like, okay, show me this and then show me that. I've been stuck, like, oh, should I take this job or that job? Okay, well, all right, well, if I'm supposed to take this job, I'm going to ask them for $6 more, and whichever one give it to me, that's the one I'm going to take, or $6,000 more. Like, because we don't know, but he does know. So you consult him. Some people are like, all right, well, I don't know if I should. I got this guy I'm talking to or that guy. Okay. So again, exaggerate my point. But Abraham sent his servant out to go get a wife for his son. Does everybody recall that story? And when he sent his servant said, listen, man, now I think I don't know if I was talking to you, Jalen, this week, or I don't know who I was talking to. Abraham had 400 trained men. Okay, so he had a military that rode with him. And I already made the point earlier that he walked into a city and the king of that city or that government tried to take his wife. So he wasn't an average Joe. Okay. Obama never tried to take the average. You see what I'm saying? That's like he was in a different environment. Okay. Now his main servant. Now, if he had 400 people, let's just say 200 of them was married. I'm just making stuff up, but just bear with me. So 200 of them was married, so he had 600 people. And out of them 200, each one of them the 200 had 3 kids apiece. So Abraham was rolling with over 1,000 people. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to exaggerate my point here, okay? Now, as I'm exaggerating this point, I want you to think about this man is walking around city to city with 1,000 plus people. That's part of his enclave and his entourage. And his son don't have a wife. So he tell his son, like, yo, go over to this next city and see if you can find myself a wife. And in that process, you're like, oh man, this is a tough task. So he prayed and said, all right, when I get to the city, the first woman that offered me something to drink and my camel something to drink, I know that woman. And anybody who been around like real women, like real women, hospitable, like, oh, you want something to drink? And they doing all type of stuff. And then at some point your eyes open up like, yo, this is a real woman, not a girl. Like, oh, you hungry? She making you plates and asking you if you hungry and trying to take care of you when you sick and bring stuff by. That's a real woman. So his servant went in the city and said, if I come across one of these and she feed me and my camel, it shows something about that woman. That's the type of woman I want to bring back. So that sign was the witness for him. And the sign was, if she feed me and my animals, 2 witnesses. So for me, it's as I'm talking about how do you delineate decision making, you'll see 2 or more witnesses. You can ask for signs. You can provoke the creator. Okay, don't get angry, man. Ask one more time. All right. I only have $20,000 and I'm trying to buy this house, but I want a house that has all of this. Pray with specificity. Send me a 3-bedroom, 6-car garage that with blue trim. As soon as I walk in, an agent's like, you know what? I don't want to sell this to nobody but you. And just, oh, thank you, because with specificity was your prayer. And now you real clear that he gave you exactly what you asked for. And if you're uncertain when he gives you exactly, like it looked too good to be true, then ask for 2 more things. And if you provoke him and he take it away from you, then I guess that's your fault. You lose it.
So I guess in conclusion, what our prayer has been, then we sat down, we crafted out the vision, the dream, the goals, and it's been a simple prayer, and it's been for Abba Yahuwah to open doors that cannot be closed and close doors that cannot be opened. So that gave us the freedom to go out and experiment, but at the same time, it's like this process has been. But then it goes back to the Romans 8:28. How all things are working for the good, but there's that clause in there. It says, for them that love him and are called according to his purpose. So it's just trying to get in there. So we've been exploring, but it's hard to speak with certainty about things that still have an element of uncertainty about them. If that makes sense.
In a sense, I was just thinking about your request has to be with specificity if it's a certain thing that you're after. And you rule out what you don't want, like, oh, okay, I want these things. And if it's with specificity, and he answers it with that specific thing, sometimes it's too good to be true, and you know it. When I say too good to be true, he answered exactly what you asked. So that's how you know it's what was designed for you. That's
There's
exactly what
blessings
I
in
asked for.
no. There's been definitely been blessings in the no, and it's not rejection. We're looking at it as a form of protection. So in our own desires. So some of the no's has not been rejection, it's been for our protection because he knows that had we been doing this, although we had a righteous intent, it would have consumed us too much. So yeah. Cut. I yield at that. I'm sure others got questions now, so I'm gonna fall back
Hey man,
and let
take
the
that
others
camera
ask the
off that
questions.
fire too, man. You provoking me. I want to be sitting near a hot campfire too, man.
I figure it's so dark you're not gonna see me, so just give
No,
me
you
some
good. You good. I'm teasing.
ambiance.
I'm teasing. Any other thoughts? Corey, Damien, Imani? Oh, yes, ma'am. And did
Actually,
you
I have,
learn anything? Did you learn anything in here? Or was I just talking?
yes, I've learned. No, you weren't just talking. Actually, I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
One is not actually regarding tonight's study, but I wanted to know if you had notes or PDFs from the last two Bible studies.
For free 99, I can send it to you. If you
Thank
donate to
you.
our camp, no. So I do have notes from there, and normally we do a review every week we start. Let me pull up some notes, and I can either get them to CAPA or whatever have you.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of it we may need to kind of recap on. I mean, you can probably just look at the text, but some of it just needs to be explained. And I think one of the reasons I audio recorded this evening is because a few people weren't here and they were asking about like, hey man, could you record it? Because I got family or I'm traveling or whatever have you. And they didn't want to miss it. So yes, ma'am, we could do that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then my second question was, so how do we know we're not putting demands on the Almighty when we are specific with our prayers? Like, of course, we know there are certain things within scripture that He wants. So we know we can like pray for those things. But then it's like, thank you, sis. Okay. But then there are things where it's like, how do I have the right to ask him for this? And if he doesn't give me this, um, like it's his right not to. So that's my other question.
So I think the first thing that I would probably think of in terms of like demands, did you use that word demands? Is that the Bible endears his relationship with us as his children. And do you have any children? Okay. I mean, but you have siblings?
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know the environment you grew up in, so I won't have to get into all that. But the point I'm making is that what wouldn't you give or your parents give to their children? Like parents are going to go out of their way for their children. Like a parent will, if a car hit a child, automatically, and maybe you hear these cases where a car hit their child or da da da, and adrenaline overtook them and they lifted the car up to get up. How is that possible? That some unseen force or hormone or connection takes over your body and you could lift the car off of your child? What wouldn't you do for your children? What wouldn't your parents do for you? I mean, back when you was like a kid and, as you get adult, parents is like, keep bothering me with da da da. But what wouldn't your parent do for you? And what wouldn't a parent do for their child? So we're endeared like children with the Creator. So with that thought, let's go to Matthew chapter 5. I'm going to read two thoughts. Matthew chapter 5 is one of them. And when you get it, or if somebody else wants to read it, Matthew 5, and we'll look at verse 45 is my point.
You said Matthew 5:45?
Yes.
Okay, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous.
So he causes the sun or the rain on the good and the evil, right? So in that case, it would be one thing if all people who are wicked, which would actually be better for people like me. I mean, not that I'm like super righteous and all that point, that's not my point, but it would be better if people who are wicked just had dark clouds and torrential rains following them around. And then those who just doing right just got sunshine. And then people who didn't want to be in torrential rains all the time just came over to the ways of right. That would be so much easier. But the reality is he causes the sun to shine on the just and the unjust, right? Then pop over to Matthew chapter 7 and look at what is being expressed in Matthew chapter 7 and start at verse 7, if you would.
Okay. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds. And to him who knocks, the door will be opened.
So notice earlier in the Bible study we read in Chronicles, if you draw nigh to him, he will draw nigh to you. Okay. If you depart from him, he'll depart from you. So here the text is echoing that same sentiment. Okay. Ask, ask, ask,
And it will be given to you.
ask, 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 ask. Keep asking, keep asking, keep asking, and it will be given to you. Now, we know that you shouldn't ask, as James talked about in the other text in the New Testament, that you consume it upon your own lust. Oh, just please give me $16 million. Well, what are you going to do with $16 million but get yourself in trouble? Like, if we are honest with each other, until we get to the right state of mind, what you going to do with that much money but get yourself in trouble? And forget the one who made. That don't sound like a fire hydrant, a fire siren. That the distinction in sound, the one who gave your ability to make the distinction in sound, that don't sound like the fire hydrant, right? Or the fire truck. So ask him, and as long as you have, in some cases, the right motive, ask and it shall be given. Seek or look and it shall be found. Knock and it shall be opened. So it's a process that you have to engage with to get that result. Then it says, for everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that findeth, or he that seeketh findeth, and he that knocketh shall be open. So it's this work that the person has to do. Like, well, you got to seek, you got to ask. Just give you an example. My prayer after doing a bunch of work last year, a bunch of work. I mean, I'm doing all type of work. My prayer this year, and I'm just giving my own personal testimony, was, dear Heavenly Father, I'm on my knees, crisscross applesauce. I want work that I don't have to apply for. I don't want to do that much work, and I want it to fall out the sky into my lap. That's what I asked for. I want to chill out this year because I busted my tail last year. And I'm just giving a testimony. In this last probably 6 weeks, I got at least 2 phone calls where one of my clients gave me an absorbent amount of money for barely some work that I barely had to do. Why? Because I asked for it. And I was real specific. I don't want to have to write a bunch of proposals. I run a consulting company. I don't want to write a bunch of proposals and be doing all this work. And I don't want to write barely any proposals this year. And they called out the blue and they're like, Mr. Moses, I'm like, how much to do what? You mean tell me I just gotta like type up this proposal and edit something that I wrote 2 years ago and y'all gonna cut me a check for how much? It was for like 4 hours of work. How much? I mean, what people make in a year. Why? Because I asked for it. Now, again, I got people on payroll. I had to, pay people and da. But my prayer was, I don't want to do that much work. So I had to ask. And the reality is when you ask, it shall be given with you, right? Now, notice this. Keep reading in verse 9 and just read down to verse 11. Now, I will say, yeah, keep reading and just read down to verse 11.
Okay. Which of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? So if you who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him?
I mean, but you got to ask. Like, so me, I don't, and this is the thing, and I'm just telling my own personal testimony. I don't ask God. I generally do not come and like, oh, give me money. I just don't, I don't want to deal with that. That's just not the way I operate. Maybe better decision making, uh, maybe help me understand the scriptures more, but ask. And in some cases, like I talked about a little earlier, you want to do it with some level of specificity, to some extent. Now, again, like some people ask, and when the Bible talks about they ask amiss, it's almost like they'll take anything because they're not specific about what their request is. Okay, just give me a new job. Well, okay, I mean, Burger King is hiring. I mean, if you're talking about just a new job, but no, give me a job that is not going to make me work more than these hours at this specific time, that when I apply for it is within this, like, just be specific. And if you being evil know how to give your children gifts, then how much more, again, this don't sound like a like a fire truck. Whoever made that, and I'm kind of being facetious, that being that we call God, that I can see, everybody, I can see y'all, right? Like I like, who thought about eyes? Now, an alligator has eyes, and I have eyes. And then he made this thing called a whale that it's like 20,000 pounds and it floats through water. Whatever made that, and I'm kind of exaggerating my point, then I need to ask, okay, can you just give me a little bit of something? Because it's not like you don't have it. Like, you got all type of celestial power to create and make things happen. Could you just give me the ability to not work that hard this year? And not let my car tire go flat for like 3 months because my car can, whatever it is. You sometimes just be as specific as possible. That's what I encourage folks to do, and it kind of points into the brother Andrew's question about, okay, I want to get this land. How do I know? Ask and try to be as specific as possible. I want you
Thank
to
you.
get me a house with a yellow door that got a 2-car, whatever it is. Just ask.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Corey, okay, my man, you took off. You've been way impatient. I thank you. You told me you was coming on the 9th. You kept your word. Appreciate that. You're here. And I appreciate all y'all. We're still on. It's 10:45. You got to drop off. That's cool. We normally over by then. But I'm more than appreciative that you are here, because you could be anywhere in the world, but as they say, you're here with me. So yes, good sir.
Happy to be here, man. So like, I guess what I learned tonight, like that I haven't thought about, is God speaking through the prophets, and how like you can use their word as like the law, like Bible, the law of the Bible.
Mhm.
And the question I had, you kind of answered it earlier, like how to identify false prophets. And I guess you answered it like just through time, like the truth will reveal it. So that was kind of like my burning question that you answered like a little earlier. So
Well, there's a whole Bible study that, hopefully we'll go through on false prophets, because the Bible talks a lot about false prophets. Because, again, he's trying to warn people, you just can't listen to everybody. And like I talked about earlier, it's the difference between a diamond and a cubic zirconia. It's the difference between a $100 bill and a Monopoly. That's clear. But the real one who false, they look sometimes so close to, a person got a suit on and they teaching and they using the words that you use and they talking about the Bible. And then the more you investigate them, like, this man is a complete fraud. But it's hard to tell somebody that because you have to be studied to see it. So, hopefully if you spend some time, we'll go through a deeper discourse on that. And, it's sometimes unfortunate in the sense that people just presumptuous and make mistakes. Like, oh, the Bible's saying this. Like, that's not what that text is saying. And they certain they right. And hopefully when they find they wrong, you can just take the reproof and say, hey, man, I was wrong about that. And it's okay to be wrong as long as you're on the way to trying to be right. So, but yes. We'll do a deeper dive on that particular set of thinking. All right, yeah, I've been up since 7 o'clock. I could be here to 2 in the morning. Y'all not holding me up. So ask questions, dive, or be like, look, man, I'm done with y'all. Like,
You got up that late at 7? What you sleeping in for?
today, I think I got up at 5 and went back to sleep. Did I?
Oh, okay. I was just wondering.
Was it 7, 5? I think maybe that was yesterday. I got up at like 5 something and went back into bed. And I was like not late, but I was late to where I wanted to go. Yeah, I wasn't in the military, man. I don't get up at 5 to be doing push-ups and 1,000 miles and jumping jacks, man. I couldn't submit to the colonel. That's not my thing. But I am a soldier in the army of the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, any other thoughts or questions? My man Damon. You probably got the baby.
Yes, sir. Now the baby is he's up there. He's on his way to sleep. If not, he's already asleep.
Oh yeah. We appreciate you hopping on. Any thoughts or questions?
Blessed to be here. No questions. It's been good to listen to the dialogue and the wisdom and insight.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, next week we will be looking at how to study the Bible. Okay. And what I'm going to do for you, it'll be a little different next week. I'm going to do a little bit of talking, but it's going to be more activity. So I've been warming y'all up. Y'all listen to me wax poetic. It probably sound good and all that. You went to the text and it's not third. But see, the beauty of being a good teacher is the good teacher defer the work back to the people. So because learning is a hands-on, tactile experience. So I enjoy experiential learning. And we're going to examine some study methods, and then we're going to employ those study methods during our study. So we'll look at a few different methods of study. So, and if you kind of hang around me a little bit, I like to some extent being meticulous, and I like structure, and I like process or procedure. So when you look at the way that I'm presenting information, the way I come to these conclusions, which is two things I'll talk about in a moment, the way I come to these conclusions is through a process. So we'll look at next week, most high willing, the inquiry-based method, the method of studying the text of the scriptures through asking sets of questions. And the more questions you ask, and the better questions you ask, you write down a list of them, and we're going to employ that next week. And then we're going to practice constructing based on questions being asked. So let's say I'll put a text up and we'll go through and ask the questions. And then I think some we'll do next week, and the following week, I'll tell me the answers. I mean, I'm working with a brother who's teaching the Bible, and we were going through, and I told him, look, we're just gonna read in English, right? Because he wanted to talk about Hebrew language. I was, look, brother, y'all be talking about Hebrew, but y'all don't know nothing about the Hebrew. You don't understand English, so let's just start in English. And he read through Genesis chapter 1, and I'm just making a point here. I'm not trying to tease him or anything, but he read through Genesis chapter 1, and I'm like, okay, you have any questions about Genesis chapter 1? And then we read through it again, and I'm like, well, what about this question? What about that question? And the truth is, by the time you finish the book of Genesis, but really the first 5 or 10 chapters of Genesis, all of the Bible is written. It's all in there. It's all there. It's just buried, and you have to read and study to bring it out. And at the risk of sounding duplicative, the word education, right? Because this is a Bible study and we're talking about education, right? The word education comes from 2 kind of sources. The letter E in the alphabet is to exit or to depart, right? And the word duca in Latin means to induce. So to exit, depart, and to induce. So you think about if a woman's pregnant and they induce her, what are you trying to do?
Bring forth the child. Bring forth
Yes.
the child.
Yes.
Take out.
Yes. Say that again.
I said to take out.
To take out, or in duka in Greek, or like that kind of Greek or Latin language, means to bring forth that which is within. So if you are really educated, like, my buddy Corey is an artist. If you learn to do artwork, and he probably naturally has some talent as a kid, and then, he took some classes and got better and better and better. If you really an artist, you don't just talk about art, then you actually bring forth that which is within. So you should be able to paint and do the work of an artist. So one of the things that you'll see through this series that we'll work on, and especially how to study the Bible, if you're really going to study the Bible, then you have to bring forth that which is within. So when we start asking questions, go through more detail, like the brother I was mentioning, and when we went through the text and read through Genesis chapter 1, he was like, sheesh, I didn't know all of this stuff was in there. Yeah, now I'm not telling you what all of it is. Here are the questions. We use the inquiry-based method. That's one of the methods that we're going to look at. You go back and answer the questions and tell me what you find. And again, I'm not teasing him or anybody else. I've just been, looking at these texts for a while. But that was probably a month ago. And he's still looking to find the answers. And I'm like, yeah, now you're going to bring out that which means your level of study is going to be deeper. So that is one methodology we're going to look at, the inquiry-based method. And we're going to look at a couple of different methodologies through the study. And the work will be on you. I'll point out some key factors. You might draw some conclusions that the text is not talking about, and I'll chime in or say something about it. But the point is that you bring out that you're discovering, and I think Yeshua or Jesus said in the text, he said, a good teacher or a good somebody, whoever he said, brings out both old and new wine, right? Like, oh, this my wine, and in Spanish they call it añejo, right? So this is the one I've been sitting on the shelf for 15 years. This is real good. And then here's someone that was just made. So we'll employ these different study methods. I'll show you like 2 or 3 methods, and then we'll kind of either do breaking into groups or inquiry method, and I'll show you some other methods. But that'll be really good, because beyond listening to the instruction or a teacher, etc., if this just once a week for 2 or 3 hours, that's not helping you improve your function, right? I want everybody to be empowered, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. I don't just want to give you, all the information. So any thoughts on those thoughts that I shared at all?
Looking forward to it.
Oh, yes. Now, just since you open your mic, I'm going to tease you just a little bit because I gave you a question about 4 weeks ago, man. I'm still looking for that answer.
I tried to reach back out to you. You just didn't
Um,
respond.
Yeah, it's a good comeback. We're gonna talk about that.
We started the conversation, but
We
we
did. We
just
talked about
yet
it
to
3 times. We never
we
got.
just yet to and I told you this, like when we have conversation, there's always going to be a to be continued. I don't think we're going to come to the end of our conversations the
We
way our
will.
mind work.
We will. I'm gonna hold you on the phone until we draw a conclusion. Uh, Anybody else? Any thoughts on that?
For me, I would say that the next lesson or the next teaching, that's what I'm looking forward to the most. I think that's probably one of the most important things for the followers of the way, is to really to be able to study, because I think that's one of the ways, that's one of the methods of how we know that God speaks to us. And so that's what I've been pursuing lately, just so I can know for sure, and I won't be tricked or won't be lied to about what's actually in the text. So I think that's one of the most important things that we need to have in our utility belt.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah, and then just piggybacking off of that, that's one thing I've been praying about too. Is I've just been wanting to learn just different ways to study. I read and I kind of started drawing my own conclusion. But we talked earlier this week, and you showed me some things, and then I asked you that question. It just shows how the Most High works. I asked you that question. Why, like Elder, how do you study? And then boom, you already got the teaching coming for it. So that's how the Most High works. So I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yes, sir. It's a lot, and sometimes you have to give yourself a little bit of leg room to learn, study, and grow. But as Romans talked about, how can they learn or how can they believe without a teacher? Again, like you can do self-study, like people teach they self stuff, so-called, right? But you do need to be instructed by a teacher. Like I didn't learn this stuff on my own, right? And thankfully, I grew up with contemporaries and elders who came before me who taught me some things. And then at a certain point, it's just like, yeah, no, I'm not sure that that's what that's saying. And, I talk to but I don't go back and forth with people who 20, 30 years older than me. I'm just like, yeah, well, the creator's showing me something and not something outlandish. It's just like the way they interpreted a text where they may be like, I think the text, they talk about interpolation or eisegesis. You're reading in something into the text that's not there versus you're bringing out what the text is explaining. But I didn't just pop up with this information, but I do study a lot. And some of these studies, as you'll kind of see, for me, it's like, it's always good to revisit it, but I'm trying to study like deep mysteries. I'm looking at stuff in Revelations and what is that stuff talking about? And I'm expounding on. So I'm trying to get more depth of my study. And that takes, like, you read a text that it says, does anybody know the end of this text? Much study is,
Is it burdensome?
something like that. That's one way.
Is it Ecclesiastes?
Mm-hmm. Much study is,
Meaning, is it like me almost like not meaningless?
not meaningless.
It's
Y'all
been
can Google it. I mean, much study is, it does something to the flesh.
is it
Weariness,
Kennedy? Oh,
weariness of the pleasure.
Yeah. Like, and again, the two ways that I know, and I'm just kind of waxing poetic, but the two ways that I know that people are studying, one is they have questions. So anytime I'm running a Bible study, and people don't have no questions, I'm like, these people don't even study the Bible. If I go to a church and everybody talking about football and basketball, I'm like, man, these people don't even study the Bible. For me, that's one immediate way that I know if they invest in their time in the Bible. The other way is they tired. Because you can't have that much energy if you're pouring into study all the time. It's weariness, it's tiring. It's like, man, how you got all this energy? The second one I'm kind of being facetious with, but it takes a lot of energy to do this much diving and studying and but if it's on your heart and your mind, you're thinking about it all the time, you're meditating it all the time. I'm driving in the car thinking about scriptures. So it is it's always on your mind, you're always thinking about it, and like you said, it's weariness to the flesh. So it'll be in your heart and mind over a period of time where I just can't stop thinking about what does this text mean? And some texts I've been looking at for a decade and a half before I understood what it meant. And now I'm walking around like I had it all the time, and what you may hear in a teaching for an hour, you may hear a sound bite of it, but what I'm explaining, it may have took me 10 years to come to the conclusion of. It just wasn't overnight. And now, again, when I started studying the Bible, there was no Google, there was no YouTube. It was encyclopedias and libraries. So you had to go to the library, ask for the book that's way in the basement. It took them 45 minutes to find it. They wheeled it up on a cart. They sat and watched you with it. You couldn't take it from the library. It was all dusty. That's how I started studying the Bible, with men that was, either my age or 2 years or 3 years older than me. And we all just began this love and affinity of, let's dig in and see what these things are talking about. But it's weariness. You can wear yourself out, like just really trying to find out what it's mean. And this is when the text talks about it's more to be desired than silver and gold, which over the last probably 7 years, my mind understands that better. Because like, okay, would I rather have $9 million or the scripture? At one point, it's just like, see, who don't want 9 million? But then you think about Sean Combs, who worth 350 million, and you don't have the basic decency of the scriptures, where you kicking women, and see, you a fool, bro. You don't. Wisdom is better than silver and gold. A bunch of people got funds and they off doing something crazy. Wisdom is better than silver and gold. And his ways are more to be desired than fine gold. And it takes time to appreciate texts like that. Took me years to. I mean, I read it, but going through experiences, like as I'm getting more wisdom, I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it now. I get it. Any other thoughts? When you teach in classrooms and you ask questions, you just gotta like wait for like a minute, just keep counting, like 45, 46, 47. Any other thoughts? If I knew y'all was gonna hang on, I would have finished the study. Go ahead, Jordan. I
I was gonna wait.
really do. Go ahead.
I was gonna wait till people started fading out. It was just I don't know if this was like really a question for the good of the group, but I wanted the books, the chapters and verses of the last two methods, like lots and prayers and the heart of decision.
Oh, yes. Let me see. I'll pull those up, but the thing you asked about in terms of lots. Is anybody familiar with the lot process at all that the Bible talks about? Now, there are different ways to do it these days, but is it familiar with? So when you look at Lot's, can you pull up that Proverbs chapter 16, verse 33? Somebody nab that text.
16:33. Yes. The lot is cast into the lap, but it's every decision is from the Lord.
So Lot's, it just as an example, as like, how do you know you hear the voice, right? So this text is saying the whole decision is from the Creator himself, right? Like, okay, I have to make a very difficult decision and I'm not empowered to make it by myself. Again, my knowledge and my understanding of what I should do for myself is very limited. And, I think I'm like a seasoned decision maker, et cetera. But there are things I still don't know and I need to take account for. So what this text is telling us is that the lot, meaning a process of decision making, and I'll talk about that in a moment, is cast into the lap, right? Meaning you go through the process of using a lot for a decision making style. But the whole result of it is from the Almighty. So here's an example of a lot. I'm just giving you one example. And you can read, here are the other texts to accompany it. When Judas betrayed the master, right? Judas betrayed him. And then they had to decide who's going to be the next disciple. One of the reasons that I'm convinced they used the lot process is, all right, it's 11 of us, but we got like, let's 40 other people. And what is the best decision? Well, I'm going to pick the tallest and the strongest. That's my favorite one, right? Or I'm going to pick the one that, like, well, no, we're not going to use it. We're not going to use some biased decision-making process. We're going to pray to the Creator and we're going to go through this process called a lot. So here's an example of what a lot would be. You can take decisions and you fold up sheets of paper. Let's say you take a 8.5 by 11, reduce it down, and let's just say, for example, as a decision-making process to hear from the Creator and know that you're clearly hearing his voice, I'm going to put in here, should I do this or should I do that? Now, don't put a choice that's evil, okay? So don't be like, should I go cheat on my taxes or should I watch something that's inappropriate? Like, don't do stupid stuff like that, right? I mean, but even if you think you need to use that process for it, do it and see what happens, right? So you can, and this is my belief and like through faith, I can put 50 of the decisions that I'm not supposed to do in, let's say, a hat or a bucket, and 4 of the decisions that I will supposed to do, and I'll shake them all up. They on little small sheets of paper like this, and I got it folded up, and I got all the decisions in the bucket, and I shake the bucket up, I pray, I may fast for 3 days, no food, no water. I really want to get clear on what decision should I make. 50 of them say, move out of town. 4 of them say, stay in town. Now, my heart really want to move out of town. So now I'm provoking the Creator by making the odds so unfair, 50-4. That's normally not the way you do it, but I'm just making my point. I put them in a bucket, shake them up. I may fast for 3 days. I may pray for an hour. I may do it immediately. Shake them up and pull out a decision. I'm praying, whichever one you show me, the first time I do it, that's telling me what decision I should make, and I'm taking the instructions from you. Now, if you put 50 decisions in a bucket that you want to go that direction, and 4, the math and probability alone is going to tell you and let's say you put 102, whatever it is, it's clear as day. If you chose one of those two that said go that direction, that's clear as day that that's what he told you to do, especially when you pray and fast about it. Now, I'm giving the 50 and 2, the 102 or 50 and 4, but generally what I do is put an even number of them in there. 6 of this, 6 of that. 1 of this, 1 of that. 2 of this, 2 of that. And should I buy this house or should I sell this house? Like, we're in the process of thinking about selling the property. I'm like, man, I really just don't want to sell it. But I prayed last year and he said, no, don't sell it last year. But I put the decisions in a bucket or a hat, and it was really clear. And this is how they decided the next disciples. Now, another way you can do it in probably like the Old Testament, they would have some rocks, and it's different ways that you can cast lots. They may have some rocks and they put king or low, right? Yes or no on the rocks, and you shake it up, kind of like dice, so to speak. It seems like, kind of seems carnal, but you get my drift. They would take dice and they would throw them out, and if one of them, not dice, but it'll be rocks, like smooth rocks or whatever, and write yes or no. And if one of them came out to be yes, and the other one was, 2 of them came out to be yes, then that's the decision should be made. If one of them came no, one out came yes, then you write your decision process before you start so you're clear. All right, one said yes and one said no, so I'm gonna just table the decision for a while. Both rocks said no. Both said yes, then that's the direction we should go. And that is a decision-making process that you can employ to determine what direction is it telling me? What should I do? Because what we're really trying to do when we're really trying to get clarity is what is the right decision to make. And we don't know. The reality is we just don't know. And we can make it that we don't want to do that for everything. Like, okay, should I put my socks on today? Okay, I need to pray first. Like not all of that, but you kind of get the drift where, okay, if it's a really difficult decision, I'm just saying I didn't make kidneys, okay? So since he made kidneys, I'm gonna just say, okay, if you're capable of making kidneys, you're just capable of telling me what I should do. So I'm gonna just put that on him to do. So that was one, and I don't think I put a lot of text for the other, you can take these texts. I don't know if I put these texts for the harder decision. I might have, I kind of don't remember. And there are some other methods. I didn't put each one of them in there, but I think we covered enough ground to look at and see. Hey, it's 1 and 11. What is that even see?
Boy, while you look for that, you're gonna have me casting lots in the morning.
Oh no, it is one of my supreme decision-making styles when it comes to inquiring, especially when it's too difficult.
I got several decisions that I'm trying to decide before, and I'll put one before you. Like, I have a dream job that's presented itself to me, and it's an opportunity. My current job pays more, and I don't like, but my current job is Monday through Thursday. I don't work any Fridays, and I have a 3-day weekend every weekend. My dream job, I'm still in negotiation to get the Sabbath off.
Gotcha.
And it's one of the jobs. It's I feel called to do, feel led to do, but then it's that conflict that's going on. I do where I have freedom of movement on every Sabbath, and if I need to take time off, I can get it, or go into this environment where I've been over the last decade and a half been dreaming about the opportunity, and then it presented itself. So it's like I might cast lots on that tomorrow and consider it in prayer. And I know that once it seems like it's an even disqualifier for the simple fact that I have to negotiate getting out of the Sabbath, but something's still calling me that direction.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons to like look at a methodology, because while some people look at it as trivial, like, oh, essentially you're rolling dice. That's essentially that's what it is. Like, okay, if it's on 4, 5, 6, I'm gonna do this. And the only reason I'm saying use that is the text uses it. When David set up men to go into the temple and rotate, they cast lots. I mean, their process may have been different, but okay, y'all three, like, this is the people who going for month 1 through 3. This is the people who going through month 4 through 6. This is people who going through month 7 through 9. And the rest of y'all go home, but it's going to be a rotation. So that process itself is helpful for decision making, but I would also say whatever the decision is, it should not go against the text. And I think he'll make it clear to you, or he'll make a pathway for what you're ultimately trying to do. And I use lots, like I don't use them like every week, but when it's a really, really tough decision, like I've been laboring over this, trying to think, and if I make this decision, it could be the wrong decision. And I just want to look, I want it out of my hand and give it to, again, have you seen a walrus, man? I mean, have you seen a walrus? He made a walrus, okay? And a hawk and an eagle that fly. He just a better skilled decision maker than myself. Because I can't make nothing that fly and guide itself and night owls. I don't have it like that. So yeah, no, go ahead and let me cast a lot and see what happens. So the harder decision, Jordan, you'll see the text here. I think these are the texts because yeah, these should be the texts. I'm looking at Genesis chapter 22 now, where Abraham was told to like take your only son. That seemed like a hard decision, but that's what he has to do. So go do it, right? So, yeah, those are the texts. There are some other methods. I didn't look at them all. There are a few others, but I think this gives people a good grounding and a good start.
Did you put the text on the screen? I'm still looking at Judges 7.
Oh, well, it seemed to pause, but I'm about to pop it back up there for you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, that's the Congos. There it is. These are the harder decision processes. So yeah, if it's and when I say the harder decision, it normally it's the right thing to do, and because it's so much harder, I just don't wanna. Then that's your flesh talking. Not go do the right thing. That is it. Now, as you all begin to employ some of these, like use them, I would really appreciate, in the future, like if it's like a month from now, or if we're still on, we're doing August and September. I'll send us the September flyer out in the near. So this is pretty much like an 8-week scenario, like this Friday night. And then if y'all like, you know what, this is all right, then we'll keep going. Okay, but if y'all like start coming in late and y'all want to come, like, all right, I didn't learn enough about the Bible, then I'm go on the street corner and start going. No, so yeah, normally the harder decision making process, but if it's the harder thing to do, generally, it generally can be the right thing.
So you said we're going to pick back up on the last two for the next Bible study, as well as how to study the Bible.
Yes, we'll review them, but I just gave you the last two, the harder decision and the casting of lots or prayers. There are a couple other, but you pray, you cast lots. But even it's interesting to me because people like, oh, I prayed and that's what that's what got to. I just don't know. Even when you did that, how did you know clearly that you heard his voice to go do? Well, I prayed. Okay. Well, how did you get the conclusion though? Well, just because I prayed. Well, no, I hear that, but how did you get the conclusion? Well, he told me, like, okay, I mean, what did it sound like? Because sometimes our conscience is telling us stuff. Sometimes it's a burning desire or conviction. I don't know, but like, how do you? So for I'm like, okay, use a couple of methods. Ask for the fleece to turn wet and cast a lot and ask with specificity. And now you know. But I don't necessarily use one method all the time, especially if I'm uncertain. When I get real certain, okay, those lots have saved me many of headaches. Like, ooh, glad I dodged that one. But if you begin to use any of these, I would love to hear some of the testimonies of like, hey, I tried this method, this was the result. And if you are gracious enough, give a testimony about how did it work out for you. So yeah, those are the other two. So we may not go over them per se in depth, but I generally start out with a review. Um, yeah, I generally start out with a review um, before we get to going into the next topic. So yeah, we will look at how to study the Bible next week. That'll be pretty a pretty good study, and we will be practicing live in the study. So,
Thank you tonight. Thank you for putting up the last two.
yeah, you want to squeeze all the juice. Like, don't leave it on the table, man. Squeeze. Yeah. Clean the plate. No, I feel okay.
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir. I heard you with the mic. So yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, a few people may be coming by tomorrow, so Pepper, you are welcome to swing through. You are more than welcome. If you bring in a guest, then your guest is also welcome. I'm waiting to meet your daughter, man. So yeah, and we'll be doing like I'm sending out a flyer and we'll do something official in a couple of weeks. I tried to organize something about a month ago, but COVID hit the house and I don't know how that thing's still around, but yes. All righty. Yes, sir. Peace out. Peace, peace, peace. Do anybody want to pray before we officially leave? I mean, I think we should just go ahead and officially play out. So, any takers?
I'll go.
Yes, sir.
All right, if you don't mind bowing your heads real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you again for tonight. Thank you for keeping us. Thank you for allowing us to be able to make a way to get to this on Zoom tonight. And thank you from Moshe and just delivering this wisdom in your word and answering many unanswered questions for however long we've been wanting those to be answered. Thank you again for this time. Thank you for all the people who are here on this call who are eager to learn and eager to grow in their spiritual walk and journey with you. Pray that you continue to keep us and that you'll continue to answer our questions, and that as we draw nigh to you, that you'll draw closer to us as well. So thank you again. We love you, and we look forward to studying and seeing you next week. In my name of God, Yahusha, what we want to say, I pray this prayer in my name of Jesus. Amen.
Hallelujah. Amen.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shalom,
Hallelujah.
shalom, Mr. Carr.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Thank you for being on
Much
the
love.
line. So appreciate all of your
Everybody.
comments.
Shabbat shalom.
Now, again, y'all can leave if y'all want. Y'all welcome to hang out. I told you I missed my auction and got a coffee. I'll be right here if anybody wanna still chat.
I need to get some rest.
About to say
Yeah.
everyone
Blessings
rest
to
well.
everyone.
Oh
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
about to go to
Rest
bed.
well. I'll be in touch with you though. Shalom, shalom.
quitters. No,
Shalom, shalom,
okay, cool.
shalom.